General and your team. Mr. Matonsi, can you assist us with the flighting the agenda, and apology for starting 3 minutes late than scheduled. The chairperson is still connecting to the system.
Chairperson.
Yes.
It's 3 minutes past 9, and from the NA side, we have got enough members to commence with the meeting. There's the agenda on the screen. I'm sure everybody is able to see it. Then the other thing is that I was informed by Parliament broadcast that this meeting is going to be on social media, and then they will also record it for delay broadcasting. So I'll be requesting members and colleagues so that when they speak, then they should switch on their video. Thanks. Okay.
Brady, can you flight the agenda?
I'm not sure if you are able to see it there, but I did. I'm not sure if you are able to see it.
Open the agenda, Brady. Do not open it.
Open the agenda, Brady.
No, I'm saying I've shared it. I'm not sure if people are able to see it.
Co-chair, can you assist Brady? Maybe we'll understand you better.
We don't see it on the screen. What you can see is that you're trying to open the file, but it's on the screen.
Okay, I don't know what could be the problem. Adam?
Yeah, it's
on the screen. Now
you are able to see it now?
Yes, it's okay. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Thanks very much. With greetings to all honorable members. Greetings also to the chairperson of the select committee, Honorable Shaida, and the team. This is a joint meeting to receive a briefing on the Border Management Authority on the progress work that has been done since we've passed it in Parliament and since the President has signed. We know the development around it. We had the acting commissioner, and now we have 3 commissioners that are fully appointed, and they are grounding themselves with work. We welcome the commissioners to this, their first meeting to the interact with the portfolio committee. The deputy minister will introduce them and introduce the brief. Braedi, we want to also extend the condolences to Honorable Lokhwase for the passing of
recording in progress,
and Honorable Ramulo Beheng for the passing on of her grandmother. We extend word of condolences on behalf of the portfolio committee and members and staff to the honorable members who hope that they will be stronger in this period. We'll take the apologies from Mr. Matonsi, and then we'll invite the deputy minister to also render apologies and introduce the team that is here from the Home Affairs and the BMA, and then we'll then go to a presentation as outlined. We'll recuse the select committee chaired by the Honorable Shaida after the briefing of the BMA, and the committee will deal with the other items that follows the BRRR and deliberation thereof. Mr. Matonzi?
Chairperson, I have only 2 apologies. That is from Ms. Mulekwa and the Minister of Home Affairs. I will hand over to my colleague from the NSOP if you can.
Okay. Thanks, Chairperson. From the side of the NSOP, there are no apologies. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, render apologies and also introduce the team.
No, thank you very much, Chair. As has been indicated, we do have an apology from the Minister, who is joining the President in the state visit by the president of Kenya. So some of the issues that are important there have to do with immigration. So he has to attend that, and as a result, I'm here to represent the minister and to take a lead. From the side of Home Affairs, we have the DG, Tomima Kote. We also have the DG Immigration Services, Mr. Jackson McKay. We also have the DG Institutional Support, Mr. Tulani Mavuso, DG HR Memo Hoboko, and CFO, Mr. Gordon Holombe. We also have DG Counter-Corruption, Ms. Moite, as well as Mr. Jean Ravelle from the BMA. We also have Dr. Mike Masiapato, the commissioner of the BMA. I believe that in the previous meeting that we held, I introduced both the commissioner and the deputy commissioner, Major General Chilembe. We also, as part of the appointment that have been made in the BMA, have Ms. Jane Tupana, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services. She has not yet started her duties, but she is in constant liaison with the other commissioners. Thank you, Chair. That is the team that is coming from Home Affairs, as well as from the Border Management Authority.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for the introduction. I will also invite you to give opening remarks, and then delegate for the presentation.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to extend my greetings to all the members of the Joint Parliamentary Committee. And we are here today to present an update and progress on the operationalization of the Border Management Authority. It does, Chair, give us great pleasure to present progress on what used to be just a concept paper to a stage that it is now being brought to life and being operationalized. It really gives us great pleasure. We understand that there's still a long way to go, but the steps that we take, no matter how small they are, we should really appreciate them because they are a sign of progress. We hope that what we present today will be supported by the Portfolio Committee. Chair, we see to the authorization of the Border Management Authority as a very progressive step towards making sure that we secure the integrity of our border environment and combat the very important problem that South Africa faces, which is that of illegal immigration. Today, we present, Chair, the following elements with regards to the operationalization of the Border Management Authority. That is human capital, systems, as well as the corporate identity of the BMA. We'll also deal in the presentation with financing, most importantly, to also source the support of the joint committees of Parliament to lobby for funding for the Border Management Authority and support our budgetary aspirations in order to breathe life to this very important organ that is meant to fight illegal immigration. We'll also deal with legislative environment as well as protocols and proclamations. We'll also deal with what we call key timelines, because when you operationalize, you must make sure that you develop targets in terms of key timelines. So we'll take the joint committee on those key timelines. But what is also important is that we will also brief the committee today on our festive period preparations. I will now request that we hand over to Dr. Mike Masiapato, the Commissioner, to then take us through the detailed presentation on all the aspects that I've introduced for the Border Management Authority. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Commissioner?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, as well as members of the committee. I do hope that the Honorable Chair can see the presentation on screen. If you can just please confirm, Honorable Chair.
Yes, you can proceed, Doctor.
That's okay. So thank you very much, Honorable Chair, as well as the committee members. And thank you very much to the Deputy Minister, as well as my colleagues from the Department of Home Affairs, as well as the colleagues from Border Management Authority. As already indicated, Honorable Chair, as well as the committee members by the Deputy Ministers, by the Deputy Minister, we are to present an update in terms of the operationalization of the Border Management Authority, as it were, and we are presenting it to yourselves as the joint sitting of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, together with the Select Committee on Security and Justice. The purpose of the presentation really is just to give an update to yourselves in this joint sitting, mainly in terms of where we are in operationalizing the Border Management Authority, especially following the appointment of the authority's top leadership. So in terms of the outline of the presentation, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, we are then going to start with the part A of the presentation, of which we have divided the presentation into 6 distinct parts. In the first part, as the Deputy Minister had indicated, we will start by giving an update in terms of the capacitation of the Border Management Authority, in terms of the human capital, as well as work that has been done in terms of corporate identity. We will then move into part B, where we are going to give an update in terms of the finalization of the protocols that are supposed to be signed between the Border Management Authority and other stakeholders that are operating at the port of entry. We will also give an update in terms of where we are around the finalization of the Section 97 proclamations, which are supposed to be signed to facilitate this operationalization process. In terms of part C of the presentation, honorable members, we will then look at the operationalization of key legislated committees, which are very critical on the basis of operationalizing this Border Management Authority. Mainly those are the Border Technical Committee, as well as the Inter-Ministerial Consultative Committee. In terms of part D, honorable members, we will then reflect on the current budgetary as well as the future requirements in terms of the budget, as the Deputy Minister had indicated. And then we will move towards concluding the presentation in terms of part E by reflecting into the operational work that BMA is doing together with the rest of the stakeholders towards the preparation for the festive season period, as it were. And we conclude the presentation by giving the honorable members some timeline in terms of where we see ourselves in the few months that are coming in terms of the full operationalization, as it were. But before we start with the conventional presentation, honorable members, we thought we just needed to flight this particular slide that remind each one of us in terms of the mandate that the Border Management Authority Act has given to ourselves as the leadership collective in the Border Management Authority, as it were. In this particular slide, we do indicate, according to Section 5 of the Act, as it were, that key responsibility we have is to facilitate the movement as well as the ultimate management of legitimate movement of persons within the border law enforcement area, as well as the port of entry, as it were. And this particular responsibility also extends to the legitimate movement of goods and services in the same context. We also have the responsibility to coordinate our work that we do at the port of entry environment together with the 3 organs of state, in this instance being the South African Police Services, the South African Revenue Services, as well as the South African National Defence Force, together with the border communities and any other role player very critical in the border environment. But more importantly, we also have the responsibility to address all kinds of interjurisdictional crimes, such as human as well as wildlife trafficking, around the issues around the movement of counterfeit goods, as well as illegal border crossings. So these are very critical responsibilities that you have instructed of us to do within the context of the Border Management Authority, as it were. So looking into these responsibilities and the ultimate long-standing problem of the country about porous borders, we therefore are understanding the criticality of fast-tracking the operationalization of this Border Management Authority. And therefore, this particular presentation seeks to give you the update in terms of where we are in achieving this particular objective. In terms of part A, as indicated, we are to reflect on issues of human resources as well as corporate identity. In this first slide, honorable members, we just want to indicate that we have observed how, I would say, the country is seeing the significance of having to operationalize Border Management Authority, as it were. We have seen after his appointment, Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister Godongwane, from the 5th of August, he moved with speed in terms of signing the letter of concurrence, which effectively enabled the president to appoint the BMA top leadership, as it were. It was on that basis that on the 29th of September 2021, we were able to see Cabinet unanimously endorsing the appointment of both the commissioner as well as the deputy commissioner for operations, which both of them started work on the 2nd of November 2021. As for the Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services, as the Deputy Minister indicated, she had already received the appointment letter by the 12th of November 2021, and she is going to resume official duties on the 1st of December 2021. We do, however, interact with her on a continuous basis in order to ensure that when she arrives on that particular day, she's able to hit the ground running. At this point, we can indicate that as this top leadership, we are working very hard together with the colleagues in the Project Management Office with the intention to make sure that indeed BMA is operationalized as soon as possible. We are able to also confirm, honorable members, that the manner in which the executive has moved in as far as this particular matter is concerned, we are able to indicate that the nature of the support that we have seen taking place, particularly from the Minister of Home Affairs together with the Deputy Minister, we are able to see how serious the country is in terms of us moving in operationalizing BMA. In this particular slide, honorable members, we just want to indicate that we do have the interim structure of BMA, which the intention is to flight it. However, we'll then flight it at the end of the presentation so that we don't necessarily interrupt the flow of the presentation. It is on a separate screen. We'll just demonstrate how the interim structure of Border Management Authority look like. Suffice to say, between now and the 31st of March 2023, just from a timeline point of view, it is very important for the honorable members to note that the Border Management Authority will remain incubated within the Department of Home Affairs as one of its branches. During this period, the BMA leadership has to work with a number of other stakeholders in making sure that a lot of issues get achieved. Amongst those is the finalization of the Section 97 proclamations, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. But the other key issue is about managing the transition in making sure that there is less interruptions as we move into having BMA operating as a Schedule 3A public entity, as it were. But the other thing that we need to note is the fact that we are also going to manage the transition that is going to involve the movement of individuals from other departments into Border Management Authority. And that process, we are going to be managing it in this particular interim period. That particular transfer of functions, of persons, of budget is going to be managed in this particular period. It is for that extent that we want to indicate to the committee that there is going to be a lot of engagements together with organized labor in order to ensure that there is not going to be any challenges when we are to be dealing with these particular issues. At this point, we can indicate that our estimated timeline in terms of the listing of the Border Management Authority as a Schedule 3A public entity, we are looking at around July 2022, while still incubated within the Department of Home Affairs. In this particular slide, honorable members, we just want to indicate that with the interim structure that we are going to demonstrate to yourselves at the end of the presentation, we just want to indicate that for the BMA to be listed as a Schedule 3 public, as a Schedule 3A public entity, there are certain critical positions that has to be filled regardless. And on that basis, those are the positions as a Chief Financial Officer position will be a competent individual for corporate services, and that is very critical. Our environment is effectively taken care of. There is also going to be a director for governance, risk management, as well as director for internal audit, as well as the director for strategy and policy. At this point, we want to indicate to the committee members that our work stream that is led by DDG of Human Resources from within the department, who's helping us in this work, is hard at work in developing the job descriptions and all of those issues that are supposed to be in place. Early next year in January 2022, honorable members will then start with their advertisements as well as the recruitment processes as required. Additional to the appointment of these individuals, honorable members will also note that a public entity, for it to function appropriately, even within the context of the requirements of the Public Financial Management Act, there are certain external committees that has to be existing. And one of those, or the three critical ones, is the Audit Committee, as well as the Risk Management Committee, as well as the Remuneration Committee. So to this extent, we want to confirm to the committee that we are looking at constituting these committees during the first quarter of 2022, whilst the effective date of the individuals in terms of their work is going to be the 1st of April 2023. So this particular slide, honorable members, is what the Deputy Minister had spoken about, the issues of corporate identity. We do want to update the committee that we've done some bit of work in terms of the developing the logo for the Border Management Authority. As you can see it on screen, we have done that together with our colleagues from the Government Communication and Information Systems, the GCIS, and we are the logo already had also been approved by the Minister of Home Affairs together with the Deputy Minister there. So to that extent, we can confirm that we are currently engaging with our colleagues from the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, together with the Office of the State Heraldry, around the registration of the logo and its protection as required by law. So as you can see, we also have finalized the specifications regarding the uniform of the colleagues in the Border Management Authority space, as it were. So as you can see at the bottom right there, we do show a Land Cruiser there. Just to update the committee members that we've already procured around 15 Land Cruisers, which are going to be our first introduction of the tools of trade for the colleagues, particularly the border guard in the borderline environment, as it were. This particular slide, honorable members, is basically just a demonstration of how the logo will look like on the uniform. As I've indicated, that the specifications are already finalized. So to this extent, you will see how the logo is going to be located on the jacket there as displayed on screen, as well as in terms of the shirts for both men and women, as well as on the cap there. This particular slide just demonstrates that we are hard at work also in operationalizing some of the basic interaction matters. You'll see there that we demonstrate how the logo will look like on the stationery within the office. On the left there, you'll see an open page which demonstrates the letterhead. On the right-hand side is the business card. As you can see it there at the bottom part is how it will look in terms of the envelopes that we'll then be using. So in terms of part B, honorable members, mainly to update yourselves in terms of the work we are doing in finalizing the protocols as well as the Section 97 proclamation, as it were. On this particular slide, we want to indicate that as part of the provisions within the Border Management Authority, Section 27.5 in particular, we are expected to conclude mandatory implementation protocols, mainly to SARS, SAPS, as well as the SNDF. These are the key stakeholders who are also having presence in the border environment, though external to the Integrated Border Management Authority as provided for in law. So it is for this basis that we had to complete the implementation protocols, which basically describes the manner in which we are going to be interacting with them as we do the work on the ground. So to this extent, we can confirm at this point that the implementation protocol between the Border Management Authority and the South African Revenue Services has been concluded to date. And we have just signed that particular protocol between myself as the Commissioner for BMA, as well as the Commissioner for SARS on the 19th of November, 2021. We are, however, finalizing the protocol with the South African Police Services together with the South African National Defence Force. And we are hoping to sign those as soon as possible. In this particular slide, honorable members, we do confirm to yourselves that when it comes to Section 97 proclamation, we are hard at work in also getting that finalized. However, for contextual purposes, we just want to indicate to the committee members that the Section 97 we are talking about is a provision within our constitutional dispensation, which indicates that the president by proclamation may transfer to a member of cabinet the administration of any legislation entrusted to another member or any power or function entrusted by legislation to another member. This is the provision that is going to actually define the work that we do, particularly in the transfer of functions, of personnel, and of budget from other departments that we'll talk about now into the Border Management Authority. It is to this extent that we can also indicate that this kind of proclamation can only be issued by the president after there is concurrence between the minister that has been affected in this particular journey, as it were. So to this extent, we can indicate that the key role players that these Section 97 proclamations are to be signed in this instance is the South African Police Services, is the Department of Health, is the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, as well as the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. On this basis, we want to update the committee by saying that the draft proclamation between the Border Management Authority and the Department of Labor, Land Reform and Rural Development has been concurred and mainly finalized. We are, however, finalizing our discussions together with our colleagues from the police, from health, from public works, in order to make sure that we finalize this as soon as possible. From where we are sitting, we are seeing that we will be able to finalize all of these proclamations by the end of next week. At the same time, it is very important for the committee members to note that there will be functions that are being done by the colleagues from the branch of immigration services within the Department of Home Affairs, as it were. So on that particular basis, because the proclamation issue has to do with both ministers having to concur, but because this is an internal matter, there is no need for conventional application of Section 97 provisions. It is on that basis that the Minister of Home Affairs is mainly finalizing the signing of the delegation of authority, which will then facilitate the transfer of the colleagues in the immigration branch within the Department of Home Affairs into the Border Management Authority, as it were. Honorable members, if we can then move to part C of the presentation. In this part, we basically seek to give an update in terms of the work that we are doing in operationalizing the key legislated committees. The reason why this becomes very critical is because these particular committees are provided for in the Border Management Authority Act. The first committee is mainly referred to as the Border Technical Committee. This is the committee that is consisting of the heads of departments or heads of entities, and it is effectively chaired by the Commissioner of Border Management Authority. It is provided for in Section 25(1) of the Border Management Authority Act. So you will then see the list there of the various stakeholders. These are the critical stakeholders who have a role to play in the border environment. All of these colleagues are therefore part of this technical border technical committee in terms of making sure that we operationalize this border issue as soon as possible. In this particular slide, honorable members, we seek to give you an update in terms of what we have done up to this point in operationalizing the Border Technical Committee, as it were. We just want to indicate that we had already managed to have the first meeting, the inaugural meeting of the BTC, as we call it, and that was held on the 25th of August, 2021. Suffice to say, we also had the second meeting, which has just taken place quite recently on the 18th of November, 2021. So we just want to also indicate that because we are in the journey of operationalizing the Border Management Authority, as it were, at this point, the Border Technical Committee serves as some kind of a project steering committee, primarily because it is sitting to guide this particular process that we are talking about. And in this instance, they're doing that work still within the context of the legislative provisions coming out of the BMA Act, as it were. So to this point, we just need to give an update, honorable members, in terms of what we have done up to this point as part of operationalizing this committee in particular. For instance, on the meeting of the 18th, we were able to endorse the terms of reference, which is a document that seeks to guide the manner in which the Border Technical Committee is going to be functioning. Secondly, we have also just endorsed the Border Management Authority regulations. As you will know, once each and every act has been put into place or has been enacted, there is supposed to be regulations that must be put on the table in order to ensure that the act is operationalized. So these regulations had already been endorsed by the Border Technical Committee, as it were. We can also confirm that in the meeting, we have also endorsed the festive season National Integrated Operational Plan, which is going to be assisting us in terms of managing our border environment in this coming festive season, as it were. Suffice to say, we also engaged in the work around finalizing the implementation protocols as well as the Section 97 proclamations, as already presented in the few slides that have gone. The last bullet here, honorable members, just indicate that although the Act is explicit in the fact that the Border Technical Committee needs to meet once per quarter, we will, however, convene a number of meetings that will be described as special meetings, primarily because we are to operationalize this BMA as soon as possible. Therefore, we'll revert to a quarterly meeting once we are able to have the mechanism running. The second committee, honorable members, is the Inter-Ministerial Consultative Committee. This is a very critical committee. It is provided for in Section 24(1) of the Border Management Authority Act. This particular committee is fairly a committee of the ministers. It is a critical committee in enabling us at the technocratic level to ensure that we're able to move with speed in operationalizing this Border Management Authority. You will see there that subsection 2, in terms of Section 24, it does designate the Minister of Home Affairs as the chair of this particular committee. Subsection 3 does exclusively indicate who are the cabinet members or ministers who are supposed to be part of this particular committee. You will see there that we have the same kind of lineup, which is mainly the department that have a role, critical role to play in the border environment. It be agriculture, defense, forestry and fisheries, finance, health, and all of those, as you can see on screen. Suffice to say that the committee can also bring in any other minister into the meeting should the need arise. The law does allow that particular provision. This particular slide, honorable members, is basically just to give you an update in terms of where we are in operationalizing this committee. Suffice to say, this particular committee, its inaugural meeting is going to take place quite soon, this Friday on the 26th of November, as it were. And therefore, we are saying, still, because we are in this transitional period, this particular committee in this instance will serve as some sort of a project sponsor, mainly in making sure that they provide oversight work on the Border Technical Committee in making sure that we operationalize this BMA as soon as possible. Part of their critical role is to ensure that if there are any dispute or any misunderstanding that are of a policy in nature, they will be able to intervene and assist in unblocking those issues, as it were. And therefore, you will see there, in terms of the few bullets that we've mentioned, some of the documents that we're going to table in this meeting on Friday, and the intention is to get endorsement in a number of these issues. The first one is tabling the IMCC terms of reference document, the same document kind of that we have already endorsed at the Border Technical Committee level. That will then guide the way in which the ministers has to do this work. We are also going to table the BMA regulations. In this instance, is for them to note, but more importantly, for them to support us to be able to activate the parliamentary process in terms of the approval of these regulations, as it were. And of course, the next part is around the issue that we are going to give them an update in terms of where we are in operationalizing BMA, as it were. And again, we are also going to reflect on the issues of the protocols as well as the Section 97 proclamation. The intention is to make sure if there is any issue that is kind of problematic in the value chain, they will be able to unlock all of those issues. The last bullet there just also indicate that arising from the BTC context, even the Inter-Ministerial Consultative Committee is expected to meet once per quarter. But in this instance, because we are in this transition, we are going to have them convening more than just 4 times per year in order to make sure that we move with speed and as far as these issues are concerned. Part D, honorable members, as we then move towards concluding the presentation, is just to reflect on the current budgetary allocation as well as the future budgetary requirements. One thing that is a fact is that in this particular instance, creating a structure as critical as a border management authority, considering the nature of the problem statement is seek to address, it is also very critical to note the kind of resources that will be required in as far as that part is concerned. On this particular slide, we just want to indicate that currently in this transitional period, we are in the current financial year of 2021-2022 being allocated 40 million directly from the National Treasury into a BMA directly. You will see there that in the next financial year, we're looking at around 41 million. But of course, in terms of the year 2023, 2024, we are looking at around 43 million and that. But you will see there that we are qualifying it by saying it's a preliminary allocation. The reason why we indicate that, honorable members, is because 2023 on the 1st of April, BMA is supposed to be a fully Schedule 3A public entity. And to that extent, there is going to be a real allocation because that is then the year of real activation. Additional to this allocation, which is what line 2 indicates, is that there is an additional allocation that we have received from within the department itself. And we really appreciate the intervention of the Directors General then, together with the CFO, for having allocated 8 million to us as the Border Management Authority in this transitional period so that we can be able to move with speed in doing the rest of the other issues that needs to be done. You will see there that they've allocated 80 million for the current financial year. It's going to be 100 in the next financial year, 2022-2023, and around 120 million going forward. The bullet at the bottom part, honorable members, just indicate that these particular figures for now does not include the financial resources that will be coming through from the department, from other departments within the context of Section 97, as already indicated. In this particular slide here, we just indicate what will then be the future estimated budgetary requirement at the point where BMA is really functional. At this point, we just want to indicate that we are looking at around 2.9 billion within the context of the compensation of employees. You will see there that in terms of goods and services, we are talking around 5.2 billion. One thing that is very important for the committee members to note, in as far as these figures are concerned, is that part of these figures are going to include money that would have come from the other departments who would have transferred their functions, their personnel, as well as the budget. So it does not necessarily say that the figures that are on screen are actually new money per se, but it's going to be part of the money that is currently available in the value chain. However, there is also going to be additional money that has to come through from National Treasury for us to be able to indeed achieve this particular objective. The bullet at the bottom end there just indicate that this particular funds here does not actually include the ICT related requirements going forward. In terms of Part E, as I've indicated, honorable members, this is the main critical last part of this presentation. We do indicate here that in as much as we do all of this work that have just been described with all of these other slides, in terms of moving to operationalize BMA, at the same time from where we sit now, there is still work that needs to be done in terms of the activities in the border environment. It is to that extent that we seek to give you an update in terms of what is it that we are doing in making sure that we also take care of the border environment in the intervening period. To that extent, we, as indicated earlier, in the meeting of the Border Technical Committee of the 18th of November, as I've said, we did endorse the Integrated National Operational Plan that is basically defining our preparedness in terms of the festive season, as it were. In this particular slide, we are not intending to go into the tactical details of the plan itself. Suffice to say that the plan does have three phases at this point. We just want to indicate that we have started this planning process around the 15th of October, and this particular phase is going to end around the 9th of December, as it were. So the kind of contents of this particular phase, honorable members will be aware, is about some infrastructure additional requirements in the ports of entry, particularly as we move into the festive season. Some additional requirements in terms of human resources that we need to take to the ports of entry in particular to augment the current existing resources there in taking care of the environment. But the other issue is the work that is being done to consolidate the ports of entry specific operational plans, which are very critical in terms of taking care of the environment, as it were. But again, the issues of engaging with a number of other stakeholders in terms of this particular work is actually ongoing. The execution phase is going to start on the 12th of December until the 10th of January. You will note there that we are starting this early, primarily because we need to make sure that we're able to deal with a lot of challenges that we sometimes experience in the festive season period. Issues around the congestion, issues around illegal borderline crossings, and all of those issues. It suffices to say in this instance that the venue operational centers are going to be activated from the 10th of December until the 10th of January 2022 in terms of taking care of our border environment. And of course, all of the issues that are supposed to be taking place there are going to be activated. Also in the execution, honorable members, just to indicate that leadership, directors, generals, ministers will also be allocated to some critical ports of entry, like your Beit Bridge, your Lubombo, your Maseru Bridge, and all of those areas in terms of making sure that everything goes as according to the plan. And of course, the third phase is just purely the demobilization as well as the withdrawal of the deployments, mainly starting from the 11th of January, 2022, until we almost have that completed. At the bottom part of the slide, we just indicate then that as we speak, there is a number of engagements that are taking place between ourselves as the Border Management Authority and the rest of the stakeholders, including engagement with our neighboring countries, particularly around synchronization of the operating models, including the operating hours and all of those kind of issues. In this particular slide, honorable members, we just indicate that over and above all of the issues around the port of entry itself, there is always a concern around the issues of the borderline. To that extent, we are indicating that in this particular festive season, we will be deploying our colleagues from Immigration Inspectorate who are going to work together with our members from the South African National Defence Force, wherein there will be a number of joint operations which are going to be taking place in this particular period, as it were. To this extent, we want to indicate that these operations, for instance, are going to be focusing on the identified vulnerable areas on our borderline. To this extent, we will deal with issues of illegal migration, as I've indicated, the issues of illegal border crossings, issues of the illicit movement of goods, as well as any other general criminal activities along the borderline. That is the essence. Additionally, we just want to indicate that since we do know that there is members of the SANDF on the borderline as we speak, we are, but for this particular period, engaging with the colleagues in the SANDF so that we can augment the numbers with some members of the reserve forces from the SANDF to come and be able to operate in the environment and assist in as far as this part is concerned. To this extent, we want to indicate that all of this work is taking us towards the movement of introducing the border guards in the borderline. And we are expecting that we will be doing that during the course of the next year. Suffice to say, Section 13 is the one that indicates we need to have the border guards that are going to take care of the borderline. We do know, according to the BMA Act, that they are supposed to be paramilitary, they're supposed to be armed, and they're supposed to be uniformed. To that extent, we want to indicate that these border guards are expected to conduct law enforcement operations at both the ports of entry as well as the borderline. Suffice to say, colleagues, that honorable members, that there is currently discussions with our colleagues from the SANDF, mainly to look at issues of conducting joint training, as well as the border guards utilizing some of the SANDF facilities as we move into building the ultimate capacity, as it were. From where we are speaking, from where we are sitting, we want to indicate that we are finalizing the memorandum of understanding with our colleagues from the SANDF so that we are able to move with this issue going forward more seamlessly. Suffice to say that the border guards, we are estimating that we will launch them sometime during the course of 2022 or the first part of 2022. This is then the last slide, honorable members. This slide basically gives yourself some kind of very clear timelines in terms of what we are doing in ensuring that BMA is indeed fully operationalized. As I've indicated when I started, that between now and the 31st of March 2023, Border Management Authority will remain incubated within the Department of Home Affairs as one of its branches. Why the 31st of March? Because that is the end of a financial year of 2022-2023. It is therefore from the 1st of April 2023 going forward that the BMA will then stand as a standalone Schedule 3A public entity. So between now and the 1st of March, we are to still remain incubated. It is therefore important to note that from January next year, 2022 to May 2022, we are going to start filling the critical positions, particularly those that are very critical, that will enable the Department of Public Service and Administration, together with National Treasury, to list us as a public Schedule 3A public entity, as it were. In June 2022, we are then going to start making some budgetary discussions with the National Treasury And this time around, the kind of the budgetary position is also going now to include the budgets that would have been transferred from the other departments within the context of Section 97 proclamation, as already discussed, into the Border Management Authority. And of course, in July 2022, we are expecting that we will then be announced as a new Schedule 3A public entity by both the Department of Public Service and Administration together with National Treasury. And to that extent, by October 2022, we are expecting the Minister of Finance in the medium-term budget policy statement to start recognizing that there is a new entity that has been listed, and this is the plan of government in terms of its financing. And of course, in February 2023, in the actual budget speech of the minister, we are expecting some reflection in terms of the intention of government in terms of funding this Border Management Authority. And of course, by the 1st of April, as indicated, we will then be exiting as a fully-fledged Schedule 3A public entity, but still ultimately reporting to the Minister of Home Affairs. In this particular slide is purely the recommendation. What is it that we are recommending as Border Management Authority together with the department and leadership collective? One is for yourselves to note the progress made towards the operationalization of this BMA, particularly since the appointment of the top leadership as indicated earlier. But secondly, to support the work of this authority in this particular quest to realize an integrated, effective, and efficient border management platform in the country, as it were. And of course, on this particular basis, we are then requesting yourselves to assist the Border Management Authority and the Department Collective in championing some few factors. The reason why we are requesting this, honorable members, is on the basis that sometimes there could be a misarticulation of what the BMA's ultimate intentions are. But the first one is mainly to discourage any interjurisdictional migration through illegal crossings of the borderline. We need to ensure that the border guards do work to encourage that people do use the dedicated ports of entry in terms of entering and exiting this country, and then be able to present legal documentation for this particular process. At the same time, BMA is actually established to address all kinds of interjurisdictional crimes. Whether we talk about human or wildlife trafficking, working with other law enforcement agencies of the country, that is what the BMA is supposed to do. Effectively, BMA will be countering any attempts to move illicit goods and services across the border law enforcement area. At the same time, we want to indicate that BMA's other critical role, especially for the economy, is to ensure effective trade facilitation, as indicated earlier, through developing mechanisms for the smooth movement of legitimate goods and services in and out of our border area. This is very critical in terms of assisting the country to ensure the realization of its economic recovery agenda. And lastly, to address all forms of corrupt tendencies in the entire border management platform by any of the stakeholders in the value chain. And this particular bullet at the bottom part is to ensure that we continue to work together with our colleagues in the counter-corruption branch within the Department of Home Affairs in terms of addressing any corruption within the system in making sure that we are able to get this work realized. Honorable members, that is effectively the end of the presentation. And as I've indicated earlier, we do have the interim structure of BMA, of which, with the chair's permission, we can be able to flight it so that the committee members can be able to see that. Honorable Chair.
Yeah, you can flight it.
Honorable Chair, if you can confirm that is visible.
Yes, yes.
That's great. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and the committee members. As I have indicated, this is just some reflection on how the interim structure looked like. You will note here that this is then the office of the commissioner. As indicated earlier, you will then see there that we start to indicate the critical functions that the office of the commissioner will be doing. But the most critical part is the various roles that had to be filled at the bottom part there. We also just want to indicate that in as much as we are flighting this structure here, we are agreeing that there are those critical positions, as I've indicated in the slide, which have to be filled in order for BMA to exit. But this is then how it will look. You will see there that there will be some support staff that are critical, one of those being the ones looking at internal audit issues, as well as risk management, as well as integrity management. That becomes critical in terms of making sure that the role players in the environment are fairly grounded. Hence, there will be some lot of vetting that is going to be taking place among the people that will be coming through into the Border Management Authority. And that is going to be critical to make sure that we eliminate some elements that might be problematic in the environment. Then this particular part here just demonstrates the two deputy commissioners. You will see on the left is the Deputy Commissioner for Operations, and on the right is the Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services. And of course, those are then the support. But I think this will then be clear at the bottom part. If I can just move to that part at the bottom here. Sorry, a bit. Yeah, so this is then the Deputy Commissioner for Operations. You will see in terms of the Deputy Commissioner for Operations, there are two critical areas. The one on the left is about BMA port coordinator, as well as BMA border control. And if you look into the spaces there, you will then see the various portfolios there that are supposed to be filled. In terms of the BMA port coordinator, there are goods and human movement. Hence, I've indicated we need to put more effort in making sure that there is smooth movement. If you look on the right-hand side, honorable members, you will realize there that the issue of border control becomes very critical. And that is the area where we are going to be having the border guards who will then be taking care of the borderline. At the last part at the bottom here is then the one for corporate services. As you can then see there, there will then be support within the office of the Deputy Commissioner for Corporate. If you look on the left, you will see Chief Director there for Financial Management. That becomes very critical in terms of making sure that the allocated financial resources within the authority are taken care of appropriately. You will see there that we talk about financial and management accounting. We also talk about supply chain management. On the left, that is very critical. On the right-hand side is the Chief Director responsible for corporate services. Mainly, that is where we have the human resource management area, as well as legal environment in terms of taking care of the legal environment. So I will then say that, Honorable Chair, as well as the one for strategy and systems, together with the area of communication, together with facility and property management. So this is in short, Honorable Chair and members, the structure or the interim structure of Border Management Authority. But it suffices to say that we will then be filling some of these positions to be able to have BMA listed, and others will then be filled as we go along the value chain. So thank you very much, Honorable Chabani as the chair, as well as the committee members. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Commissioner Dr. Masiapata, and your collective team for giving a brief to the joint committees on the process you have undertaken, progress made on the work that under your leadership and the leadership of the Minister and the Director General. We want to thank you for this comprehensive and also giving account to the readiness for the festive in line with the in all the borderlines. I'm going to allow members to interact with this report. And I'm going to try to make it simpler so that we don't take time. We are almost 17 here. And I will urge members to ground themselves to the issues, be specific. I had wanted the hands to be raised, but will be advised that if the member will not contribute or agree to the issues, because it will be difficult to interface with the numbers which are here, given the broad presentation and members that made to contribute. We're having Honorable Okwase, Honorable Kanyile, Honorable Van der Merwe, Honorable Tito, Honorable Ross, Honorable Mutetwa, Honorable Nkosi, Honorable Makalikis, Honorable Silekum, Honorable Mutsamai, Honorable Zandamela, Honorable Tswako, Honorable Pillay, Honorable Totovu, Honorable Bartlett, Honorable Mutise, and Honorable Shaida. These are members, Mr. Matonzi, and your colleague, which are identified as in attendance. If there's a member that I could not identify, you'll alert. And I know that there may be some wrong pronouncement on the surnames. Apologies, honorable members. I want to advise that let's work on that sequence so that we were able to manage and be concise on the issues that you'll be raising. And thereafter, we'll invite the commissioner and the team to make responses or comments out of your contributions. And then we'll then request the deputy minister to also make comments. And then later we'll request the chairperson of the slot committee, Honorable Shaida, to do closing remark on the item. I sense that is not dissent to the approach I want to take so that we effectively manage and have proper contributions to this meeting. Let me invite in that order, Honorable Okwase. Okay, Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to everyone present in this meeting. I think my first question, I was partially covered by Dr. Masia Pacho. I wanted to ask if there were any plans that have been made in terms of managing the traffic congestion that we normally see in our ports of entry. And we welcome the presentation. It was quite detailed and we appreciate it. The question that I have is that can maybe they give us the current status in terms of the progress that has been made about the renovations from the Zimbabwean side? Because if I remember very well, I think about a month ago, there was another traffic congestion. And if there is a congestion on the Zimbabwe side, it affects us as well. So I'd like to know if that issue has been addressed and if they know what is the progress or if those renovations have been finalized. And Chairperson, in terms of managing the traffic congestion, the plan that they have, I also want to know if it has been discussed with the other side of the border as well, because I do believe that both sides, they need to communicate, they need to liaise so that they can be able to flow. Because if you remember very well, during our oversight that we had in January, I think it was on the 4th, we realized that some of the challenges are caused because of the incompetency on the other side. So I think it should be very proper if they can just advise if they have communicated with the other side of the border. The second question that I have is with regard to the uniform. They have given us the spec of their uniform, which we appreciate, but I would like to know if that uniform is going to be sourced locally. And during the presentation, we have been giving the structure of the BMA, but what is not clear is that what is the envisaged staff complement of the MPA, once it is fully operationalized. And then, Chairperson, I only have the last question. I want to know what will happen to the immigration branch once the BMA becomes a branch. Is there a need for both a commissioner of the BMA and the deputy director of the Deputy Director General of Immigration? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Kanyile, for your contribution. Honorable Van der Merwe, co-chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to all of you. Greetings to the DM and as well as the department and the BMA team. I also want to say thank you very much to the Commissioner for the presentation. It is good news that work is being done. However, it really looks to me like the full operation it will take a long time for the BMA to become operational. And you know, if you, for example, look at some of the comments that have been made, the DM said we need to lobby for funding. And I also heard the Commissioner saying that this BMA will only be considered as an entity towards in the budget towards 2023. And so there was also one slide that spoke to 8.1 billion that is needed to make this BMA fully operational. So I really wanted to know, considering that, you know, considering the current economic challenges, is there any commitment from Treasury? Because the BMA Commissioner said that there will only be discussions with Treasury around budgetary issues, I think towards 2022 or 2023. So I would like to know, considering that, you know, the BMA needs to be operational ASAP, as in, you know, sooner than later, is there any commitment from Treasury that we will be getting that 8.1 billion to make it fully operational? Because otherwise, all of these presentations and the slides will read more like a statement of intent or a wish list if we are not sure that that budget will actually be made available to the BMA from Treasury. So I think that is my first concern, Chairperson. But secondly, I hope that closer to the time, closer to the festive season, that we will be engaging with the BMA again around its festive season plan, because as much as those slides does inspire hope, I would, for example, want to know the plan with regards to clamping down on corruption at the borders during this festive season. There are reports coming from Beitbridge, for example, that, you know, these days the officials at that border post prefers people who are coming without documentation, because of course that leads to a bribe of sorts, and that there are specific fees being charged by certain officials. I think the amount is about 4,300, which allows you to come in and out of the border without the correct documentation. So as much as we've got a plan in place, there also needs to be you know, a proper plan, not only in terms of monitoring the border, additional human resources, but also, of course, an anti-corruption plan for this festive season. Chairperson, I would like to know, what is the envisaged staff complement of the BMA once it's fully operational, as well as the number of border guards that we will see in 2022, if we can just get those numbers. And by when are we hoping for this 80 million that was in slide 21, I think, to be transferred from the various departments, because it says it must be done so in the 21-22 financial year. And then finally, I just wanted to get an update. There's an Inter-Ministerial Committee being chaired by our minister. I know the minister is not here, but maybe the DM can give us an update in that regard. A specific Inter-Ministerial Committee looking into illegal migration as it pertains to, for example, the employment of foreign nationals in a variety of sectors, whether it's the trucking sector, hospitality sector, etc. Whether the Deputy Minister can give us an update with regards to the progress made so far. Because also recently, Chairperson, you would have seen there was a lot of outrage in the media following the murder of quite a few, well, a number of women were murdered by an illegal migrant, which of course brought this matter into the media space and into the public domain again. So maybe just an update from the DM in this regard. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Van der Merwe, for your contributions. Honorable Tito. Honorable Ruas.
Thank you, Chair, and to Dr. Masiapato for the presentation. My first question really is, who is in charge of the South African borders at this point? I'd just like to understand, where does the buck stop? Is it now with the Commissioner? Is it with the Minister of Home Affairs? Is it with NAT joints? If we can just get clarity on that at this point in time. And then with the Section 97 proclamation. So we see that some departments like SAPS, Health and Public Works seem to be, I don't know if they're stalling or if there are issues that are preventing the Section 97 presidential proclamation to be signed. And so what are the issues that these departments are expressing? Or is it just pure negligence? And then in terms of December, I don't know if we will have a chance to have another meeting before December on the borders. So I'd just like to understand two things. What numbers are expected in terms of the numbers of travelers over the December time period? And then what additional resources are being put in place to process these travelers? And then secondly, the area around the border. So your 30-kilometer stretch that encompasses, or your 10 kilometers that encompasses the border and the 30 kilometers around the border post. What law enforcement resources are going to be put in place there to monitor those transport routes to the borders and to put in place facilities such as toilets and patrols, given that there's a good possibility that trucks might be stuck there again. Then in terms of the transfer of employees, so the Act, it allows for the transfer of employees from these different departments that operate at the border. And what the Act states is that those remuneration, the pension, etc., you will not be able to go down. So everybody will be brought up to a level. So as much as funding will be transferred from the departments, have you quantified the increase in the public sector wage bill that this movement will precipitate, and where will this be funded from? Then in terms of the Coast Guard, so the BMA Act opens the way for a border Coast Guard with specific provisions for, search the boarding of vessels within the maritime borders and the powers of the BMA officials in this regard. So I haven't seen anything about this that I can remember. What are the plans in this regard for the acquisition of vessels to patrol the coastal border? And what are the interactions with other law enforcement agencies that operate on the coast? And then two more things, Chair. Just in terms of what we saw on Carte Blanche, I think it would have concerned a lot of persons, and specifically perhaps Major General Chilembe, who's been involved in that environment for a while. I just want to understand what is the monitoring mechanism to monitor this illicit trafficking? And how is it that Carte Blanche can find these people quite easily, but the support, the border security enforcement cannot? And how will the BMA resolve this? I'm talking about specifically oversight over the different security agencies that operate within that space. And then finally, Chair, in terms of the interaction with SAPS. So I think the role of the BMA vis-a-vis the South African Defence Force is clear, but there still seems to be a lack of clarity on what the relationship is between the BMA and the South African Police Service. Because Section 199(1) of the Constitution essentially says that SAPS is mandated to police and secure the border environment. So if I could just get clarity on how will the BMA operate vis-a-vis the SAPS in that border management area? Who will be in charge? How will that law enforcement operation work? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Was, for your contributions. Honorable Mteto.
Thank you so much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. I've got only two quick questions, Chair. The first one, Chair, is around the issue of the system. Now that, firstly, we appreciate the speed and the effort that has been put by the BMA into the whole process. My question, Chair, is the other countries that also be neighboring countries, were they also taking this into a positive and also trying to ensure that we align our system together? And the second one aligned to that, Chair, is that is there any other changes that people might experience because of the new BMA in this coming holiday in the borders, maybe other documentation that might be needed by the BMA for people to cross in and out to the country? Secondly, Chair, is the issue of staffing. Are there any other staff members that are currently there that might be found being a victim of taking a package or ended up resigning based on this new structure of the BMA, that they might find themselves not fit to align themselves within the new structures, and as a result, they might take a package? If so, What are the discussions with the trade union? Then lastly, Chair, the issue of the logo itself. You know, if you look at this logo, Chair, it's a good logo, but it doesn't talk to anything around South Africa, where there's a South African Border Management Act, both on the logo or on the abbreviation. There's nothing that talks about our country in the logo itself, because it should have, I suggest that it should have indicated in one way or other than to be like, look like a logo of a game ranger. It must show that this is our border management and it talks to our country as well. Maybe if there's something on the logo itself or on the abbreviation, we might appreciate that, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mthethwa, for your contributions. Honorable Nkosi. Okay, Honorable Makalakis.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm largely covered, Chair. I just have one area-specific question as the NCOP representative from the Free State regarding the Free State and Lesotho border. We have heard some of the plans to empower the BMA with resources to patrol the borders, but the Free State Lesotho border is a bit different from others. It's a mountain, it's farms, it's quite different. It's very difficult to patrol it in the normal way in which you would patrol some of the other borders. I just want to know specifically what plans are in place of the allocated additional resources to make sure that that these borders are controlled effectively as well. We sit with a crippling economy in terms of agriculture, specifically due to this problem, and it has become quite a crisis. Linked to that question is also to what extent has this issue been discussed with the local stakeholders that aren't part of the government, and who is ultimately going to be responsible for that? Is it going to be the BMA, or is it going to be the specific government departments themselves? I believe quite some consultation between ourselves and the Lesotho government, as well as the local agriculture stakeholders, is quite important. But if there are too many stakeholders, then we don't speak from the same mouth. So I would just like an indication with regards to those two issues for the Lesotho border. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contributions. Honorable Seleko. Okay, Honorable Mutsamai. Unmute, Honorable Mutsamai, if you can unmute. Yeah, we can hear you, Honorable Mutsamai.
Are you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank you very much. You can proceed.
Chairperson, more department in Home Affairs, le police, le masol. Hante mo batho ba ba mmala ra bona hore maponesa na lo tshwarwa mo di border gating haholo ile ya mo Mozambique mo eleng hore maponesa a rona a phusha corruption e kgolo haholo go fetisa selekang. E ka ba bona le ditshwetso le ditsela tse leng hore department ena ya Home Affairs ya etsa hore e ka emisa batho ba ba nang le botlhokotsebe thata ona maponesa a rona mo di border gating. Hobane batho ba mmala ba kgona ho feta fela ba tswa ka dikoloi tse ka kwano di ya go Mozambique, especially dikoloi tse tshwana le di Fort Ranger, dikoloi tse tshwana le di Legend 50. Mare bontsi maponesa a rona a na le letsogo mo a ke se ba se etsa se leng gore se ka thibela bo kgwene ke a leboga Chair.
Honorable Mutsamai. Honorable Zanda Mela. Okay, Honorable Nzoko. Gwini.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Chwaku. No, thank you very much.
Apologies,
Yes,
apologies.
it's not my check, and I just have just few questions. Sorry for not putting up my video. I'm not feeling well. I just wanted to check now. Can the department confirm that there's no truck traffic at the borders? Are they able to confirm that? And also, can they please send us that operation plan? I think, I don't know if Praed we do have it. Because last time, if you remember, same thing happened. Said that we've got the plan already. All systems goes, we are all hands on the deck and what, and we're sitting here during the whole festive, the season. And then we're just saying that there's a problem at the Bait Bridge and all of that, people cannot get out. So I wanted to check in details. And I hear the presenter was talking about the issue of saying that we're still going to engage. We've sent memorandums of understanding and all of that. Now, at this point in time, when I wanted to check on something that says, yes, it's done, it's going to happen and all of that, because we don't want to inconvenience our brothers to go back home, to go and enjoy their Christmas with their family and friends. So I hope that it's not going to be the repeat of last time. We're not going to come back here and start dealing with that issue. And then also, Chair, I wanted to check, the president has allowed that, has announced that all the virtual borders must be open for free trade. Now, in this sort of arrangement here, this border management, I call it myself, it's an overrated, toll gate. Is it what systems have they put in place to ensure that there is a free movement? And also, to ensure that, there's actually free trade between these African countries. And my last question is, we always focusing on the Border Management Act, comrades, we're always excited, we're very excited about blocking Africans moving up and down Africa and all of that. But we're not focusing at the areas like, the airport and all of that. Specifically, the issue of actually fire blade. Is in that area, has there been any security breaches at the fire blade? I think it's a private airport or something like that. What are the plans to ensure that in that fire blade there is no no smuggling of all the drugs and or smuggling of goods and all of that? Is there a plan on this border management authority to ensure that these private airports, especially fire blade, there's not the smuggling of drugs and smuggling of goods and all of that? That is my 2 cents worth there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mkini, for your contributions. Honorable Pile.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think my first question is covered in regards to staff complement. The first one that I want to ask is with the concerning increase in numbers daily around COVID, what are some of the contingency plans do they have in terms of addressing this, especially as we go into the festive period and seeing a larger number of persons coming through? And then the last one is in light of COVID and the different lockdown levels, local and small businesses were the hardest hits. In respect of this and the uniforms, will BMA make use of local suppliers? Thank you.
Thank you for your contributions. Honorable Dodovu. Honorable Bartlett. Honorable Modise Mja.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I apologize, I won't be able to put up my video. I'm experiencing some bad network challenges on my side. Firstly, Chair, let me take this opportunity and appreciate the presentation and also to commend the BMA. I think colleagues, all of us were aware we've been waiting for this entity to be put in place for a very long time now. And really, we really applaud the structure being put in place. Actually, it is very exciting. I also want to commend them on the structures that they have presented. It really looks good on paper. We really hope that we will be able to achieve the desired outcomes. Chair, we are all aware that we face a lot of challenges in our borderlines. Our borders are porous, and this BMA entity has been put in place to solemnly deal with those issues. And we hope in the near future, we'll be able to get a proper action plan on how they are going to implement and alleviate some of, or a lot of these issues that our colleagues would have raised earlier. And I think many of these challenges are also in their disposal. So we really appreciate the structure that they've presented today as a starting point. But I would want to advocate that in the near future, they should come back and brief us on a proper action plan on the ground, particularly in our borders and borderlines. Colleagues would have also made comments around the approach of the festive season right now. We note the fact that there isn't much budget currently with the entity, but really hope there are plans in place already to start dealing with the issues of the long queues of trucks that will be traveling in and out of our borders. They've been a challenge for a very long time, and with the festive season looming, we know that we are going to experience a lot of that, and we hope there is a proper plan in that, and also equal to the movements, food movements from members of the public. Chair, I think colleagues would have raised a lot of issues and asked questions, but mine was just to appreciate and to implore the BMA that with the structure looking good on paper, we hope it won't be a structure that would forever come and give us briefings on plans, but put nothing or put no action in place. We really have high expectations from the entity, and we implore you not to disappoint. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much for your contributions. Honorable Shaila.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome, appreciate and thank the Commissioner, Dr. Masia Pato, and the department for the presentation. I think we can only say with pride that we are pleased with the progress that has been made. And I think the previous speaker covered me to some extent. We are excited to see the vision of the BMA becoming a reality, despite, as we were developing legislation, there was a bit of negativity in some quarters with regard to the BMA establishment. Chair, we note that the institutional structures at the higher level of ministers and technocrats are in place, and that processes are unfolding at a rapid pace. I think colleagues have covered me to a large extent, Chair, but I think we should monitor closely the finalization of the protocols with SACS and defense and the Section 97 proclamations in terms of the key timelines that were presented. I think challenges around these will have implications for the deadline of July 2022, when the BM is expected to be listed as a Schedule 3 entity. And also, Chair, I think the issue related to the transfer of personnel, I think, can be a very sensitive process, and we would request that both the department and the BMA leave no stone unturned to ensure that the smooth transfer and transition of personnel happens. And I think funding is also a matter, Chair, that would require more attention, and I also think that we should get a more detailed breakdown of budget requirements in terms of various phases of implementation. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Shaik, for your contributions, and all members for contributions and questions arising from the report and recommendation that you are proposing to the BMA team led by Commissioner Masiapata, and the Home Affairs Collective here led by the Deputy Minister in this meeting. We're going to, I think one of the areas of caution, Commissioner, is that the committee did conducted an oversight in both Beitbridge and Libombo, arising from the crisis that was witnessed. I'm sure you are alive to that report. We did conducted it with the Deputy Minister. He also went to, so we, and I'm raising this because you have raised preparation on the report, the same as it was raised with us. And the committee was resolved that all is well. Will not have, even if challenges, but I don't think we'll have major challenges. And the experience thereof proved that there were challenges at the borders. That is directed the committee to conduct a oversight, but also with other stakeholders that have contributed to the crisis which was there. I think there's a highlight on the area of interaction with the other counterparts, your counterparts in Mozambique and in Zimbabwe or any other country, where we share borderlines in terms of the preparation. It is quite important if you listen carefully to members that are raising. We're going to request Commissioner, you will delegate the issues that perhaps will be related to the Home Affairs. The Director General will come after you. And if you have to delegate, you'll delegate, and you will then request the Deputy Minister also to take account of some of the issues that have been raised. There's an appreciation of progress work, and the reports give hope. But what is more important is the phases of implementation on the ground for our people and the people in the continent. Commissioner, I'm going to invite you to give comments. There are many issues that have been raised. You can delegate to your collective, and after that we'll invite the Director General and therefore the Deputy Minister. Commissioner.
That's great. Thank you very much, Honorable Chabani.
Commissioner, yes, can you just start afresh because I think you are not audible.
That's okay. It looks like I have a challenge here with the camera, Honorable Chair, so I might talk without.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's is accepted because I must apologize. Other members are struggling also with the network. They've just notified us. Will interact with them with the minutes of the meeting. Proceed, Commissioner.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Chabani, as the chair, as well as the rest of the committee members. So indeed, Honorable Chair, I will then be assisted by the Deputy Commissioner for Operations, General Chilembo, who's here, as well as Mr. Jim Ravele, who is the project manager in the Project Management Office. And of course, the Director General, as you had indicated, will come through, and the rest of the other Deputy Directors Generals present. So I'll just go through some of the issues, but honestly, on the basis of the number of questions, if I could really go for blow by blow, it might really take a lot of time. So what I will do is I will just try to reflect on the broader issues ultimately. If I can start, Honorable Chair, with the issue raised by Honorable Kanyile in terms of the plans for managing traffic congestion for instance, we just want to confirm that indeed there is a lot of work that has started taking place within the environment to make sure that we deal with issues of traffic congestion, as it were. To that extent, we have started engaging with the colleagues in the freight industry. I think you will note that there has been an engagement which was led by Minister of Home Affairs together with the Minister of Labor. But the point at the time was mainly to discuss on the basis of the truck drivers who were basically complaining about the hiring of foreign nationals. In the same discussions, we're starting to reflect on how do we then better manage the issues around the border environment, you know, as it were, in terms of the traffic congestion. So that's the first part. But we have also been engaging with our colleagues who are responsible for managing traffic on the actual roads, particularly the Road Traffic Management Corporation, but also with the provincial traffic structures as well as the local based structures. So that we are doing in terms of making sure that we do have proper control on the environment in making sure that we deal with this issue of congestion. But most importantly, we have started engaging with our colleagues through the joint technical teams with our neighboring countries, particularly around synchronizing the operating dynamics. And that effectively talks to the previous issue that we had earlier, whereby we had a situation where Zimbabwe, for instance, started doing some bit of collection of some tariffs, which they expected the truck drivers to pay in cash. That on its own became very much problematic, and it created a lot of traffic in the environment. So through our engagement with them, we were able to then move away from the issue of cash, and the issue had to be collected through electronic means. That on its own has started to assist in terms of making sure that the traffic moves a bit smoothly, and that is the essence in as far as addressing that particular issue. The other issue raised by Honorable Kanyile was around what will happen to the immigration branch within the Department of Home Affairs when the transfer of the immigration officers on the port of entry in particular move into BMA. I think this is a very critical question, because that is what we are dealing with when we deal with issues around the Section 97 proclamation, even with the other government departments. One thing that needs to be followed through on this particular question is that the BMA is a purely implementing structure. It's mainly a structure that will be operating on the ground. The immigration branch in this instance, as well as other chief directorates, for example, or branches in other departments, whether it's the Department of Health, whether it's the Department of Agriculture, for instance, those branches will remain. Their responsibility will still be to kind of drive policy in terms of interjurisdictional issues, as it were. To that extent, they will still be the ones who are then sending out directives in terms of what we need to do to be able to deal with whatever issue on the ground. A typical example, the Department of Health, through their branch, will still be able to say nobody should enter South Africa without a valid COVID negative certificate, as an example. That will still come from them. Then we have to make sure that that directive is implemented on the ground. So it doesn't mean when we talk about a transfer, we are literally closing all those branches in those respective departments. So that is the question in terms of Honorable Member Kanyile. In terms of the issues raised by Honorable van der Merwe around the issue of this taking too long, I think the timelines, Honorable van der Merwe, are actually more kind of clear on the basis that we are looking at having BMA exit the incubation within the context of the financial years. If we are not to exit it on the 1st of April 2023, it means we must exit it on the 1st of April 2022, meaning just in a few months' time. And the reality is, based on the work that needs to be done in making sure that we capacitate the structure so that it can be able to address the issues in terms of the requirements of Public Financial Management Act, we will not be able to make it at that point. So hence, we are giving ourselves a full financial year which is 2022-2023, to do all of these activities so that on the 1st of April, we exit as a public entity. So that on its own, it does not mean there wouldn't be work even operationally that is to be done driven by BMA. We'll still do all of that work, Honorable Member, in dealing with those issues. The issue around the budget, we do agree, and that is one of the issues that we would obviously require from yourselves as the committee members to assist in championing, as the Deputy Minister almost indicates. So on that basis, we are agreeing that that needs to be done. However, when we look into the figures demonstrated on the slides, as I indicated, part of it is going to be part of the money that is going to be transferred. And therefore, it doesn't mean the rest of it has to come through as new money, because if that then becomes the reflection, then in no time, we might still start to hear some kind of pushback on the basis of those figures. So we need to appreciate that there is going to be money transferred that is currently functional in the space. I'm talking here on the issue raised by Honorable Van der Merwe around the 8 billion, as it were. In terms of the issues around dealing with corruption, indeed, Honorable Member, you will note that there is a lot of work that is being done to deal with corruption. DDG Advocate Moitse is here, who is in charge from the Department on issues of counter-corruption. And to that extent, there is a lot of work that is being done. And I think in the past few weeks, honorable members would have noted that there has been the takedown of around 8 officials at the Bomo border post who had been involved in this kind of activities, which amongst them included a police officer and some officials within the department, including a civilian from Mozambican side. So there is work that is being done to make sure that we clean also within ourselves in terms of dealing with all of these issues, as it were. In terms of the update on the Inter-Ministerial Committee around migration, Honorable Van der Merwe, I think you did indicate that the DM will give an update in as far as that part is concerned. So when DMs talk to that aspect, I suppose you will be able to deal with that. If I can then move quickly to reflect on issues raised by Honorable Member Ruos, the issue around who is in charge now. Maybe we just need to indicate here, Honorable Ruos, that you see, the BMA is in this transitional space, as it were. So as we speak now, you will note that in the current, as of now, we still have a multi-agency approach that is being deployed in the border environment. And therefore, on that particular basis, we can still say that the police are still in charge within the context of the work that they are actually doing there. Similarly, SNDF is in charge within that context. SARS the same, as well as the rest of the stakeholders. But the intention, obviously, is that we will then have the rest of those integrated, through which Border Management Authority will then be in charge in terms of the entire law enforcement area. And of course, working together with the 3 organs of state, the police, defense, as well as SARS, within the context of the implementation protocol as indicated earlier. So that on its own is a description in as far as that part is concerned. In terms of the transfer of employees, Honorable Ruos, we are very much cautious on the sensitivities around that. That is why we have a very clear plan to engage with labor, both bilaterally, trilaterally, including discussions within the Public Service Bargaining Council, as it were, in terms of making sure that the transition does not have a negative impact into the well-being of the staff complement, as it were. So those are the issues that we are basically dealing with. In terms of the issue of the Coast Guard, Honorable Ruos, you're very right. In this particular brief, we are not touching it. Suffice to say to the committee members that the issue of the Coast Guard is going to be the next phase in the longer term. In the current, we are looking at the ports of entry, we are looking at the ports, the airports, as well as the borderline, with the intention that as we then mature the establishment of BMA, then we will be able to move into the coastal area. Currently, our colleagues in the SNDF, particularly the Navy, is fairly in charge of the coastline, as it were. And therefore, we are considering that they are having that part effectively covered. Indeed, we were exposed, Honorable Ruos, around the carte blanche issue. And to that extent, we can confirm that we are going to be working in making sure that all of those issues are actually addressed. And that is the reason why we are then going to have the border guard to be able to deal with those issues. Obviously, under normal circumstances, we can argue that we can still have people that are of nefarious character in the environment. But the BMA Act does indicate that for anyone to operate within this environment, we need somebody who is fairly vetted by the State Security Agency, fairly grounded in terms of issues of ethics and all of those. So we'll do everything possible to make sure that all of those issues you had seen in the clip on carte blanche are effectively addressed, as it were. In terms of the engagement with SAPS, indeed, we are having those discussions, Honorable Member, as I've indicated. In terms of the issues raised by Honorable Mteto around the systems, in terms of synchronization with other countries and the alignment, that is indeed what we are going to be working on. Maybe at this point, Honorable Members, I can indicate that any successful management of a border environment, even literature has confirmed that, and practice, by the way, at the global context, is the fact that there should be three things that are effectively looked at and ultimately addressed. And those are the issues that we are working on. The first one is to agree that a multi-agency approach in terms of border management has been fairly unsuccessful everywhere. And to that extent, integration as well as consolidation becomes the way. And as a country, with the border management agency, border management authority being where it is now, we have then achieved the first part, which is accepting that we can only succeed if we move through integration. But the second issue is exactly the issue you're talking to, is the issue of investment in terms of ICT infrastructure, in terms of border management. That is the second phase where we are going to have a consolidated feel in terms of dealing with those issues. Hence, I have said that for now, we want to be fully grounded. We will then continue to use what we currently have, but the future state is to make sure that we bring these issues on the table to be able to address all of these things. In terms of the, will the people experience difficulties which might make some of them to resign and all of that? One thing that you can confirm to the committee now, and that is provided for in law, is that for the people that ultimately have to come through into the border management agency, they have to have a positive security clearance. And the reality of it is, if anybody is not to pass through that particular Rubicon, the reality is that that person will then remain within the department in question. There is no way that the BMA can actually enroll people who have actually a negative security clearance finding. That is a provision within law, and there's no way we could actually subvert that. However, there is no way that anybody might be forced to exit the environment just because the system is just made not to be conducive. All of the colleagues who are currently on the ground, there wouldn't be anything that will cause any problem. In terms of the issue of the logo, Honorable Mtetwa, you are very right. The issue there is that under normal circumstance, which is what we are moving to be doing, once we place the logo on the actual uniform, it then gets accompanied by our flag, and that is a demonstration that this is the BMA for RSA, as it were. And that is basically the context in as far as that part is concerned. Let me then move with speed just to reflect on others before the colleagues come, Honorable Chair. Is the issues raised by Honorable Makalakis. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. The issue around Lesotho, as well as the environment, which is not that easy to engage. This aspect talks to what I said earlier, and that is the whole issue of investing in technology. It is in this instance where we will then start to have the unmanned aerial vehicles, the UAVs, as they're always called, to be able to man or to take care of those kind of areas, as it were. Once we are fully operational in terms of the borderline, we will have the relevant tools of trade for us to be able to monitor those areas, which we cannot necessarily be able to do. We'll have drones and all of those kind of instruments to be able to deal with that. In terms of stakeholders, you're very right, Honorable Member, in terms of engaging with the farmers, as well as the rest of the stakeholders, together with engaging our neighboring countries. So I can then confirm at this point that we do have the joint technical committees that we basically are participating in, which are fairly bilateral interfaces with our immediate neighbors in addressing the rest of these issues. And that on its own is inclusive of having to engage with other stakeholders in the environment. In terms of the issues raised by Honorable Mutsamai around people being arrested, yeah, indeed, this is the example I gave in terms of what happened in Lubombo a few weeks ago. And that on its own is indeed a demonstration that people had to be arrested just to indicate that we have arrived in the environment, and the intention is to make sure that we clean the environment, as it were. But of course, in terms of the rest of the other issues around the status, in terms of our colleagues in the police environment, the arrest, as you might have seen it actually included one police officer in that context, as it were. In terms of the issues raised by Honorable Chaku, I can just indicate there that, there's a question whether we can confirm that there is no drug trafficking across our borders. I think this one is a fact that there is drug trafficking as we speak, and there is work to be able to counter that. And this, we know, is one of those real issues that we have to be dealing with as we go forward. And to that extent, we can then indicate that the issue of the operational plan is there, as I've indicated, is very detailed, and it deals with a lot of these other issues, as it were. And we do agree, Honorable Chair, that as part of the responsibility we have is that as we indicate to yourselves that we have this plan, as we go into the execution, we need to come back, obviously, in the new year, after we have then wrapped up the process, to take accountability in terms of what would have transpired in terms of the implementation of our issues, as it were. In terms of the issue about blocking Africans, I think what we can agree on is that the intention as provided in law, in terms of the work of the BMA, is not necessarily to block particular people. It's basically to block people who might need to cross through the borderline. The intention is to show them where the port of entry is, regardless of whether they are Africans or not. However, the point raised, which is very important, is that there has to be focus in terms of dealing with the airports also, so that we can be able to make sure that there is no smuggling in as far as that part is concerned. And I can confirm that that is the work that is ongoing. In terms of the issues by Honorable Member Pillay, increase in terms of the COVID numbers, what is it that is the plan? Honorable Pillay, we can confirm that just tomorrow we are having discussions with our colleagues from Port Health, who are from the Department of Health, and the issue is to synthesize our plans around the availability of Port Health officials in making sure that they do what is supposed to be done in this transitional period in terms of handling the issues around health-related issues, and also in terms of the numbers, as it were, and we'll be able to deal with that. In terms of the sourcing of the uniforms, we can just indicate that there is a transversal contract that exists within the department or within National Treasury that is being utilized by the other organs of state in terms of uniform. And in this instance, we are going to be moving into that space to be able to start sourcing of the uniform. But whether the suppliers are local or international, I think on that one, my colleagues will then probably assist in terms of reflecting on that. Suffice to say that we are going to be piggybacking on that particular transversal project. Transversal. I only had only 2 lines to conclude. In terms of the issues raised by Honorable Member Modise, to say that, I think Honorable Modise was basically putting issues into context in saying that we shouldn't have just a good plan and fail at the execution phase. And we do note and take that guidance very seriously, Honorable Member. Indeed, we will make sure that when it comes to execution, we do our best. And like I said, there will be time to come on the other side of the year to take accountability. Just lastly, on the issues raised by Honorable Sheikh around the structure looking good, monitor the protocol and the proclamation. I agree that the monitoring at your level in terms of oversight is good. Suffice to say that at the operational level, we have the Border Technical Committee that is overseeing this work. We have the Inter-Ministerial Consultative Committee, which is also overseeing this work. As I've indicated, the BTC is at the DG level and the Inter-Ministerial at the ministerial level. Their purpose is to make sure that this protocol and proclamation issues are finalized. But of course, you will then be doing oversight to make sure that we do finalize that aspect. Yeah, indeed, we will make sure that there is a proper transfer in terms of the people so that there is no any confusion. And of course, we note your guidance, Honorable Chabani, in terms of the experiences that you had when you went to do oversight in the environment. And to that extent, we do agree that those are our priorities that we are going to be dealing with going forward. So honorable members, Chair, if I can stop here and maybe invite my colleagues through your leadership, Chair, to come through and address any of the issues that I might have missed in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other response? that Deputy Commissioner will want to input before we go to Director General?
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. I think the Commissioner has mostly touched on main issues that are problematic in the port of entry environment. Just to emphasize one issue, Chair, is that the issue of the festive season operations, because I've heard that most of the honorable members have been asking about the festive season plan. Chair, there are various causal factors that are over and above what we plan for during this period. First is that mainly on the land borders, the layout of the borders are a real causal factor, because as you know that most of them are in mountains or in mountain gorges or in the rivers, and the exit and the entry to the ports of entry environment are at each mouth of each port of entry. So normally there's no space between the two countries' borders. For example, if we push a number of trucks to the other side, you find that the other side doesn't have a place to park those trucks in those areas. And the other causal factor is the one that we have already mentioned, that some of our neighboring countries make unitary decisions without informing us that this is now the process that they're going to follow. For example, the issue that was made by Mozambique and Zimbabwe in relation to that the truck drivers must pay or they must have cash in order to go through those. So basically, those are the some of the issues that really, in whatever plan that we have, that may be the main causal factor in the issues of the borders. The infrastructure also, it is a problem, although we do plan for that. That while the travelers are waiting to cross over, we have to put in infrastructure like your toilet infrastructure, water that we have to give to the travelers that are crossing. The other one is the issue of our staff that we employ at the border during this time, that each and every department have to work on the overtime payment that they have to pay for the overtime work that our members are doing. But that has been confirmed, Chair, in the presentation of the festive season. Each and every department has confirmed that they will be having extra overtime in order for us to pay those members that have to work overtime. The other point, Chair, is that most of the challenges that we face are not inside the port of entry itself, but are outside the port of entry, where we're talking about the issue of the traffic management, the issue of the crime that takes place in those areas. In order to deal with that, we have identified various provincial joint committees, or where we have to go and do the presentation to them in order for them to assist us dealing with the issues that is outside our environment. The areas that we have identified the Free State will be going there to present because of the issues that happens at Maseru Bridge and Fixback. And also in Limpopo, we'll be presenting to them with regards to the issue of Bait Bridge and also Homeless Bridge, because if there are issues at Bait Bridge, we tend to divert the traffic to Homeless Bridge that goes through to Botswana. However, there are also issues that we are looking at. For example, in Homeless Bridge, we are now at a rainy season. That port of entry was built in a flood line. So when it rains, normally it becomes flooded. So we have processes that look at all of those issues that whenever we're having such challenges, how do we deal with that? Honorable members have asked about some issues that relates to crime. For example, the issue of vehicle crime. Honorable Mutsamai raised at that point that at Libombo, there's an issue of vehicles that are going through the port of entry. In dealing with that, Honorable Chair, we are working with various stakeholders like your Business Against Crime, which includes the financial banks and the insurances, because most of the vehicles that goes through those ports are those that are financed vehicles. And we find that when they go through the port, they are not reported as stolen. And they only become stolen after they have crossed the border. So what we have done is that we have agreed with the banks, the financial banks and the insurances in terms of putting the information on the movement control system, which is interfaced to the other role players like your police system. That whenever a vehicle arrives at the port of entry, and that vehicle is not reported stolen, however, we are able to talk to those banks or those insurances that in front of us there is a vehicle. Can they check for us that is it a vehicle that they are looking for or what? So we have those modus operandi that we work with them, where they then tell us that no, maybe this car has not been paid for 2 months or 3 months, confiscated, and then they will come and fetch those cars. The other issue on vehicle crime is the second-hand vehicle, the imported vehicles that comes through the port of Durban Harbour. These cars, Honorable Chair, are not allowed in South Africa. However, what happens is that our neighboring countries, they purchase these vehicles and then drive them in our country, coming through the port of entry. But in order to prevent that they cannot be registered in South Africa, what we do is that when this vehicle arrive at the port of Durban, we register them on the NETIS system, which is the Department of Transport system, in order that whoever buys that car cannot register it in South Africa. And we are also working with customs with regards to those vehicles that are coming in the country, because there are processes that if you come in with those imported vehicles, you cannot drive in the country for more than 30 days. So those are the things that we are doing and working hand in hand with our counterparts with regards to controlling those issues. Like I said, Chair, that the Commissioner has touched mostly on all the issues that have been raised. The issue that has been raised by Honorable Tswaku, where he said we should confirm that there will be no trafficking or there will be no traffic at the borders. We are working with the trafficking industry, where we have asked them that from the 10th of December, or they should maybe come up with measures that trucks should not be carrying goods over those borders, or they should lessen the traffic with regards to that. However, we are still waiting from them to hear that what measures are they going to put in place that we don't have too much traffic of trucks during that period. With regards to the issue of movement, when we were looking at our statistics, is that the movement is not as high as it was previously. I think it's because of the COVID-19, and luckily our neighboring countries like Zimbabwe, they are still very strong on the movement. So we don't have enough or a lot of movement with regards to travelers going through the port. Hence, mostly the traffic on those movements is done on the borderline, where because people are not allowed to go through the port, then they use the borderline. Hence, we're going to then put measures that we concentrate on those identified segments in order to prevent the movement of people. I think those are the main issues that I wanted to emphasize on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. Director General.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and the Commissioners, Deputy Minister. Let me first respond to the question that was asked by Honorable Kanyile with regards to the sourcing of the uniform. The response, Honorable Kanyile, is that the contract for uniforms require local content. So you can rest, you can be assured that both in terms of the material and also the manufacturing thereof will be done locally in line with those requirements. And then you also asked, Honorable Kanyile, the continuous engagements, whether we are engaging with our counterparts in the neighboring countries. And the response is yes, there's continuous engagements with the counterparts. Even when there was the congestion, both Mr. Ravele and also the colleagues from SARS continued, including DDG McKay, having those discussions with the colleagues, including the support that was received from business in terms of how that congestion could be dealt with. I think that's what really assisted in terms of easing the congestion. And then, Honorable van der Merwe, you asked a question around the work of the IMC. I'm happy to report that on the 13th of November, the IMC, through the Department of Labor and Employment and ourselves, we tabled to Cabinet the National Labor Migration Policy. Amongst others, you'll recall, Honorable van der Merwe, it's got to deal with the issues that you've raised around illegal migration and some of the activities related to quotas. And we were then requested to go and conduct further consultations and also ensure that there's alignment. You'll recall that there's work that we've been doing around the critical skills list. We've just received the NEDLEC report, I think sometimes last week. And we need to align some of the policy issues with that, and also further consult with small business around some issues that have been raised to make sure that the policies are complementary. So that's the update that I can provide on those two issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG, for the responses. I'm going to invite the Deputy Minister to comment and remark on the issues that members have raised.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me firstly start with the issue of congestion around the border environment, which has been an issue that has been raised by most members. I think we can all agree that congestion when you arrive in the ports of entries, it is mainly caused by cargo that is moving through the ports of entry. And such is as a result of the lack of advancement in terms of technology from our trading partners, which is across the other countries. Mainly, they are still using manual systems to process their customs. But also the issue of cargo is really a customs-related issue rather than a movement of people-related issue. And as a result, it is mainly a custom-related matter that is not even within the South African border environment, but in the countries where the such cargo is going into. That is why you see them being stuck on our side of the border. We are able to process them fast. SARS has advanced systems to do so, but we are in engagements and will continue to engage our neighboring countries that we are having a trade with, particularly around the issue of the Africa Free Trade Area, because we shouldn't be charging tariffs like they are doing now, which is also causing congestion. And also, they also have regulations that are sort of causing the stagnation on our side. For example, you'll find that in Mozambique, trucks and the cargo are not allowed to move after 10 at night, which means that then that stagnation becomes mainly seen on our parts. But we are engaging with the other countries to deal with those issues. On the issue of the necessity of the immigration branch at Home Affairs, you will realize that immigration deals with quite a number of variety of issues. Just if I were to highlight a few, the issue of inspectorate, it has to still continue. Even if you have the BMA dealing with the border environment, you still need to deal with those who are in the country illegal, particularly those who will have came in some way, and make sure that they are not there. So inspectorate remains important. You also have a permitting unit. So the job of immigration is not only entailing the mending of the border environment, but it has to do largely with other issues, including legislation, including advocacy issues. And on the issue of operationalizing and the issue of time, I don't think, Chair, we should be expecting that over a short period of time, we will overnight have a fully operational border management authority. It comes in blocks. Whatever, when you build an organization, you have to build blocks. So that is where we are right now. Our main responsibility is to make sure that as we lay those bricks and mortar, we do it in a very rapid pace so that we can move with speed. But you can never wake up, even if you have all the money that you need, that is necessary. You can't, over a short period of time, just be able to build an entity. And if you want to build a strong entity, it requires you to be thorough, particularly on the policies and around the issue of the legislative environment. On the Inter-Ministerial Committee, yes, the Inter-Ministerial Committee is there. It is being co-chaired by Dr. Aaron Mtwaledi, the Minister of Home Affairs, together with Minister Thulas Nxesi. We are currently doing joint operations, both from the Department of Labor as well as from Department of Employment as well as Home Affairs. We are dealing with policy advocacy because our main focus is how do we change policy to make sure that our country does not become a free fall for illegal immigrants to be employed. How do we make sure that we tighten controls for employers that will have been found transgression of the law, that they pay heavy fines such that they refrain from employing illegal immigrants? We will consolidate the report and then bring it to the portfolio committee if we are required to do so on the work that we have carried out. On the issue of corruption, we are very strict. When we introduced the counter-corruption branch, and we also made sure that it is led by a DDG and made sure that we beef it up. It's starting to show results. We're able to convict. I think just last month, we had people convicted in Durban. We had arrests being done in Mpumalanga. We had arrests also being done in Libombo, which means that we are improving in combating corruption. What you will understand as a difference between a carte blanche kind of a setup and a police investigation driven by intelligence is that when you investigate to arrest. You do not investigate to showcase. Now, if you investigate to showcase, you are most likely not to make success when you are supposed to get conviction. If I'm to make an example, you have to apply, if you are going to do an entrapment of a person who has done something wrong, you have to apply for it, get an order to do it. Unlike carte blanche can just come in, show what they have to show. So the modus operandi or the aim at the end of the day is very much different. But I think that we can all agree as members of the command and honorable members that we are making progress in terms of making arrests. And when we did the arrest in Libombo I think 2 weeks back, we did indicate that we now have agents on the ground who are going to continue this work and we are going to continue making arrests. We are not going to tolerate any kind of a situation where our own staff members and members of law enforcement compromise the sovereign integrity of our country. So I think those are the issues that I would like to deal with. The majority of the technical issues, I do believe that both the DG and the senior leadership at the Border Management Authority have been able to deal with them. If there are issues that are left, we'll appreciate if they can be sent through to us, then we can respond to them in writing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much, DM, with your team, and the Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, the DG with your team, for updating the committee on the progress so far on the BMA. and also for taking our nation, our people, into confidence on the progress since the establishment of the Border Management Authority, and also the stakeholders that were involved in the consultation and those that have interest, and also to take members of the media in confidence on the issues that you are engaging. Will Chair highlight that one of the critical areas for the success in the main is implementation of the work that has started, and also to lobby both from the Treasury on the budget that must make sure that that must be inputted into their programs, as highlighted by the Commissioner, for the success of the will obviously, as the committee, monitor and the process that you have outlined in preparation for the festive season and other areas that you have highlighted as part of the implementation phase. We must say that you have brought confidence, Deputy Commissioner, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner and your team, in terms of the planning phase and the foundation that was laid by the former acting commissioner and other colleagues that contributed to this program. I think the committee appreciate and note the progress so far, highlight the recommendation that you have said, you have highlighted in terms of the support of the committee and other stakeholders. We will, as the committee, make sure that you are accountable to the areas that you have briefed to the committee. Where there are challenges, you ought to come back to the committee and raise those challenges with the committee. I think the committee as a collective is ready to assist and complement the good work that you are doing, Deputy Minister. You'll extend that appreciation to the political head of the department, Dr. The chair of the Select Committee on Security and Justice, Honorable Shaida Sheikh, to make overall closing on the item, and will then after release the team, and I'm advised that also the Select Committee, they are going to attend other session and will remain with the members of the Portfolio Committee to adopt and to discuss, to reflect on the BRRR. Is that Honorable Shaida Sheikh?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the Deputy Minister and the BMA Commissioners and their respective delegations for this very useful and fruitful engagement. The BMA Act came into effect on the 1st of January 2021, and indeed we are pleased that significant progress has been made in respect of the implementation of this Act and or the operationalization of the BMA. We are particularly pleased with the fact that progress has been made in respect of the appointment of the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner, as well as the progress made in working towards the finalization of the implementation protocols and the Section 97 proclamations. We encourage the department and the BMA to continue to fast track these efforts to operationalize the BMA. We note that on slide 28, that in addition to noting the progress made towards the operationalization of the BMA since the appointment of the top leadership, the Commission requests the committee members to also support the work of the authority in its quest for the realization of an integrated, effective, and efficient border management platform in the country, and to champion all the imperatives which the Border Management Authority seeks to achieve. Indeed, Chair, the two committees are noting the great strides and the work undertaken, and we would like to see an improvement in the functioning of our border posts in the future, particularly the reduction in crime and corruption activities and the improvement of infrastructure. Let me also thank all members of both the Select Committee and the Portfolio Committee for their insightful inputs. We will continue to monitor the implementation of the Border Management Authority Act as part of our work as committees from both the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. With that being said, Chair, let me thank you, and as you've indicated, request that members of the NCOP be released. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and all members of the NCOP and the NA for your attending to this item. Thank you, Deputy Minister with your team, and also the Commissioner with your team. We now have exhausted this item, and you will be, Mr. Matonsi, can you give an indication so that we release our colleagues, honorable members who are engaged on the other parliamentary business in NSOP, and the Deputy Minister and the Commissioner? Mr. Matonsi?
Yes, Chairperson, Adam will be making the presentation on the report, and then the others can be released, the NSOP members and the Department of Home Affairs.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, DM. Yes, Mr. Adams, can you quickly go through the report for comment? I'm looking at on our time.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, can you confirm that you can see the documents?
Yes, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, sir. In the interest of time, I can focus just on the additions made by the honourable members. We also had a management meeting with the whips and the various political parties to make additions. So if we go to the recommendation section 6.2, I got a submission on two of the points from Honourable Ruiz, as well as I updated the one recommendation based on what the BMA is now presented to us. And the chair also made contributions on the first, or asked us to make a specific recommendation on the financial performance and reporting of the department. So those are reflected in the first two recommendations here. The first was that the department should explain the measures it has taken to improve its reports relating to financial and performance information, as suggested by AG in its next quarterly report to the committee. And secondly, the issue of the lack of policy or implementation on revenue collection should be addressed before the end of the 2021-22 financial year. Just to note that the 6.2.1 there indicates, it also includes the issue of ongoing issue of contingent liabilities, which the chair raised specifically. We then to 6.2.5, which was, I think, 6.2.2 before, we just put a specific timeline on the cost-benefit analysis of installing security cameras. It was suggested that 3 months be allocated, but it's a significant undertaking with over 400 officers. So I think that we've allowed for 6 months for the department to look into these security cameras. They have already had some time since our oversight to commence this work, so that should be sufficient time. Then ensure that the Department of Home Affairs works with landlords. Okay, no, so that one is not a new submission. Then 6.2.12. This was the recommendation on generators at offices, but also improving network downtime. And just an indication there that the partnership with CETA and Dimension Data needs to resolve the network issues within the 24 months allocated from the related 2019-20 targets. So just including a timeline there for that specific target. Then 6.2.16, based on what the Commission has now said on the BMA, we've just revised this statement to indicate that the Minister report by April 2022 on all the relevant departments, transferring the required staff and budget to the BMA. And this obviously then includes National Treasury and its allocations. So that's just to make that a more specific, because they've now updated us on the timelines, but there are some time deadlines on these transfers by April next year, according to the commissioner. So we just need to make sure we keep track on that one. Then the additions were made on the Electoral Commission submissions, which I then included in the second draft I sent out last week. So the first of which is that the IEC is commended on its clean audits and good governance and is encouraged to keep up the progress. 6.2.28 there, the lack of finance needed to retain employment of some permanent staff and make 92 appointments, as well as inadequate training, contributed to the challenges that were identified during the 2021 local government elections. This must be addressed in the upcoming 2022 budget application to National Treasury. Next, there must be an investigation and study into the number of people who didn't vote because their names did not appear on the voters' roll, including that some in the same household were voting at different voting stations and that there were incorrect ballot papers delivered. The IEC should also explain the measures it will implement to ensure that irregular expenditure prevented prior to its presentation on its budget to the committee in 2022. The IEC must specify the details of the amount of around 52 million of other non-compliant matters on page 147 of the annual report under note 49.2. This was just an issue identified in the annual report by myself. The IEC will need to improve to ensure that more eligible South Africans are on the voters' roll and participate in elections during the upcoming national and provincial elections scheduled for 2024. And lastly, the IEC needs to increase measures together with its stakeholders to ensure increased voter participation amongst the youth prior to the 2024 national elections. Yes, I believe that's everything. Oh, just the indication, the chairperson also specified that the outstanding issues recommended by the committee in the GPW must also be followed up and implemented. And this is reflected here to show that all reports, including that of our committee, are considered and reported on by the end of December. So we won't have a meeting on that, but we will follow up on the report on their progress in that regard. This is what I have for now, Chairperson. I'll leave the presentation up, but we can take submissions.
Thanks very much. Just go back to government printing works.
Sure.
Before members can comment, go back to the first item. There's somewhere we use, yeah. This 6.2.19. It says the GPW must account of how they address the issue leading to extensive delay in financial statement and contesting whatever financial funding. If you go back to the annual report on this matter, there's a contribution on how they are responding to this matter, mitigating the loss of this data matter and what contributed to the finding. They did explain to the committee. So we can't say that they must account when we know as members of the committee that they did come and account and what are the mitigating factors that they're going to put in place, including the appointment of the task team that are investigating in the government printing works. And the committee also resolved that the minister by end of November, he accepted that by end of November, he'll be getting a report from these entities and you'll come back to report to Parliament. So I'm just saying, let's improve on the issues that we know about them. Let's not raise issues as if the committee is not privy to the to the reports. And then management labor is to improving the work condition to ensure conduct. Yes. I'm not sure how, perhaps your colleagues will assist. We have said here, we conducted an oversight, Mr. Adams. There were issues that were dealt with in that meeting, including bad relationship with the labor unions. And if you can recollect, go back to the notes of government protection works. They do highlight that. In fact, they even gave example in terms of the structure that they are working on, in terms of how the union has contributed to that effect. So we must not raise statement as if there's no work that has been done by this committee in the oversight intake, but also by the report that we're being receiving. So where there's progress in terms of oversight and indication that we must highlight it. Where there are challenges, we must also highlight it, and therefore the mitigating fact, how they're going to respond in terms of the issues that are there. On the IEC, Mr. Adams, I think the committee must be specific. It's the same narrative, the drafting of the report. If you go back to 6.2.8, the IEC should explain the measures to implement to ensure irregular expenditure and so forth and so on. We received the annual report, and there was engagement from that front from the members, and they did explain as to how they're going to. I'm just picking up issues that we have dealt with at the committee, because the BRRR, once it's adopted, it must reflect on the work that we have interacted with Mr. Adam, and the progress. Therefore, the IEC will need to improve. Will need to improve to ensure that more eligible South Africans are on the voters' roll. What do you mean when we say they must improve? What are we saying? Because the APP and the annual report, and even the IEC, when they're presenting, they are accurate in terms of measures being taken to improve for the registration of eligible voters. They've given numbers there, and we have taken a collective responsibility in our summary that the IEC stakeholders and the stakeholders and political parties must contribute to what you are raising here, of people, more registration, people turning out to vote in other areas. So I'm just highlighting this narrative that you need to build up, Mr. Adams, with the good work that we're dealing with. We have just received the Border Management Authority report, and I hope that you would also reflect it in the report. So the report must go in with, if a person must read it, because this report is meant for people to read the work of the committee, Home Affairs, IEC, and government printing. So the ordinary person must have appreciation of understanding when she or he interact with this report. So we must just not write statements that are not talking to the where there's progress, where there's weaknesses. We must highlight those in detail. Members, I'm inviting you to interface with this draft report, and I think I must thank members who contributed in the MENCO and the research team, Mr. Adams and Hlongwane, for the draft this report. I'm going to invite, I think we're remaining here with Honorable Ruos, Honorable Kanyile, Honorable Mqini, Honorable Tito, and Honorable Pillay, Honorable Mutise. You may also, if you have technical issues with the network, just ground your camera. Honorable Ross.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, thank you for the preparation of this document to the team that put it together. I think if we can just go to 6.2.12, it just needs to be worded slightly differently because the way it's worded now gives it quite a different meaning. So here we're saying resolve the network connectivity within 24 months from the 2019-20 target. So that can be interpreted as to say you had a target which was 2 years, and then you need to resolve it within 24 months of that target. So we should rather say that resolve the network connectivity within the 24-month target as per the 2019-20 annual report. Otherwise, it can suggest that you've got another 2 years after that.
Okay. Is that all, Honorable Ross, so that we...
Chair, I also have quite a serious concern. If we go down to the Government Printing Works recommendations. So if we look at 6.2.19 as it is now, this is a fundamental change from what was there. I don't know if it's a new recommendation. So the original recommendation 6.2.18 was that the GPW management must be held to account for extensive delays in their financial statements due to contesting their audit findings by the AG several times. And now that's changed to something completely different. In the next presentation to the committee, the GPW management must account. Let me just get it here. It's going off the screen. Must account for how they've addressed the issues leading to extensive delays. Chair, it's a fundamentally different thing. So the one is that they've already presented on this, and we need to bear in mind that it's an extremely serious audit finding that has been brought against the GPW. And so this original 6.2.18 should absolutely stand in toto as is, because they need to be held to account for that. So we as a committee are saying that the administration needs to hold them to account. How was this allowed to happen? We need to bear in mind that this was an entity that was on a sort of qualified audits just a few years ago. And now they've gone all the way down to the very bottom level. So we cannot say that just coming and accounting for how they've addressed this is the same as that. It's absolutely not. I mean, what we're saying in 6.2.19 is that next time you must come and say, what is your action plan to not let this happen in the future? So Chair, we need that original recommendation back in there.
Can Honorable Ross just recap his contribution on the statement? Are you saying that?
Chair, I'll put the original 6.2.18 in the chat.
Yeah, he says this, the GPW, the 18 should attempt to table their before May 2022. And being held responsible for the loss of financial data without the relevant backup being in place. Is the point that you're raising?
Chair, I've put it in the chat. So just on the original BRRR that we were supplied with last time out. So there was something else added in, so they've all shifted down once. But the 6.2.18 has now become 6.2.19, but it's a completely different meaning and wording. So I'm saying that you can have 6.2.19 here, but you can't take out that point that was in there that I put in the chat. Because we said the GPW management will be held accountable for extensive delays in their financial statements due to contesting their audit findings by the AG several times. Now, what this point is saying here, 6.2.19, is it's saying they need to come and report on what they are doing to fix this in the future. It's two very different things.
Okay.
So we need to add this one back that I've put in the chat. 6.2.19 is also relevant. They do need to come and say, how are they fixing it? But we can't take that one out. We simply can't have an entity that's gone to the very bottom of the audit level and we just leave it. They have to be held to account.
The point that we must interrupt you, Honorable Ross, you'll come back. The other point that we're raising and we raised as a committee is the acceptance of the minister's interim team that's led by Ms. Ngumbi, if I'm pronouncing, yes, Ms. Ngumbi, to investigate the financial loss of the data that and the delays in the financial statement. And in their report, both the Auditor General highlighted this matter, that it was as a result of the delays or the loss of data that has contributed to the delays for the financial statement. And the findings was accepted by the committee, and responsibility must be taken by the team. And once the team, I'm referring to the government printing works. And further to that, we have said that the investigators team that was appointed by the minister must come back to the committee, which the ministers agreed on in the last to brief us on the issue. So there's no much difference in terms of because the committee will able to appreciate the report from the investigation and the investigating task team. And we're not saying the management can take responsibility on the loss. What I'm indicating is that there's, as part as what you're saying, that if they come back and report on what they did with this matter, but we must appreciate that there's a process that the AG has highlighted, and also there's a process in relation to the data loss that the minister has taken responsibility to appoint the task team so that we're able to appreciate the issues that have contributed in this matter. So that was my clarity in terms of when we're able to take out the notes, we are able to appreciate all the process that are as a result of the Auditor General's recommendation to the committee.
Chair, can I just respond to that?
Okay, I'll give you and give other members to engage. Honorable Ross.
Yeah, Chair, I think
yeah.
Chair, this is the challenge of when we get these financial statements so late, because you're talking about two different sets of statements. So the ones that we saw now, everybody else, so DHA, we saw their 2021-22 financial statements and the annual report. The one that we looked at for GPW was the 2020-21. Now we're still waiting for the 21-22. So you're talking about two different financial statements. The one now that we didn't see, 21-22, was because of the data loss. This one that this recommendation is about 2020-2021.
2019-20, sir. Yeah.
Yes.
2020-29, yeah. The previous one. So that investigation is about the ones now that were supposed to serve. This one that we actually discussed was the previous one. So it's so late that we're looking at it at the same time as we're looking at the next year's for the others.
Okay.
So the recommendation 6.2.19 is fine, but 6.2.18 as it was, as I put it in the chat, must go back in here.
Okay. Members, can you contribute? Honorable Tito? Honorable Mkini, I know you have indicated that you're not well. If I can get, if you're still there.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm still here.
Okay.
No, I wanted to check, man, on the government printing works that we did an oversight last time. Did we ever get a report? There was a lot of issues that emanated from that oversight. I think one of them is the engagement between the management and the labor and all the stuff. And also the whole instability within the management itself. I mean, appointment of the CEOs and all of that. I wanted to check what happened to that report. That report, do we just snap it and all of that? And on the IEC, there was I don't know if, because I think last time when the IC was around, we had a problem with the network. The IC had a lot of problems in terms of their VMDs. I mean, that actually can tie up with the improvement in terms of registration of people. I don't know how is that going to be improved, because there are systems in terms of, let's say, registering people. There are a lot of people who actually, were turned back, their systems not working properly, and all of that. So when they say that the improvement and us as the parties, we must take responsibility, or we must be part and parcel, I don't really understand, even though we are doing that because we did that. And I mean, for example, our own parties, but the IC failed dismally in terms of getting their systems to work properly. It's still hurting at this point in time. And I don't understand that 6.234. IC needs to increase how will they actually do that, voter participation and all of that. But I wanted to check that, are we not going to be covering in terms of IEC, to say, how is this VMD? Because now even though we welcome the new technology from them, how are they going to make sure that it's working properly and ensuring that people, they register properly, and their online system of registration is not working, Chairperson, at all. It's always jamming. So we needed to really check on that and zoom it in, because it nearly caused a lot of problems. Remember, they even announced that 70,000 people were erroneously registered after the, what you call this thing? After the, that VMD made a mistake of registering people, of allocating people as if they are registered after the proclamation day. So yeah, so these guys must just get their house in order in terms of registration of people. I'm really not happy about that. So we need to really focus so that in 2024 there's not a problem like that, Chairperson. Because if you also saw that last in this election, they had two lists. I mean, they had a voters roll, and then they have an MEC, seven, MEC 7 list or something. Yeah. It's like going to a conference with a delegation, and then all of a sudden you have another delegations again. So that also can cause a huge issues as we're going to 2024. I agree that they really need to improve in terms of registration of people, voter participation and education and going out there. I don't think it's a real issue, because I think we go to our constituencies, we go and take them for registration, but the problem was the blockage in their systems of registration. We welcome the new technology, but they must improve tremendously. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Honorable Tini, for your contribution. I think in the committee, we also took a decision that will be briefed comprehensive report on the 2021 local government election. Mr. Matons, that will be early next day. But I think the issues that are raised are important, because current with the system. You remember that in the last PC committee meeting when we were with the IEC, there was an assurance to the effect that this system is good and ready to go. But I think also the Chief Executive Officer did give an explanation in terms of the challenges that they've encountered during the space. But I think the contribution is correct, that they need to tighten the systems, improve, and where there were a lack of challenges, were able to go to 2024, or if there will be by-elections, at least there's not going to be limitation of members or community members participating. Honorable Lekwasa. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I have been covered by the colleagues that have spoken before, but I also want to emphasize on the issue that you have just raised now, that the IEC need to come and give us a comprehensive report early next year, so that we can be able to discuss the elections that took place in 2021. Because most of the issues that Honorable Mgcini has raised are the same issues that we have witnessed, and I think I've also raised them on our WhatsApp group. So I think they will need to come back, they need to come before the portfolio so that they can be able to give us answers. I think more of the issues are going to be raised next year, because what I also picked up is that we have people that are residing in a certain ward, but in these elections, they were voting in a different ward. It doesn't make sense that if you reside in Ward 6, then you're going to vote for a ward councillor in Ward 5. But I think those issues will be better discussed when IEC is with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your contributions. Honorable Pile.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is on this electoral commission. I think we need to correct and clean up these items. The first one is, I think 6.2.30. We need to separate it. We need to separate this because there was, first of all, we said there should be some kind of report and investigation in terms of the number of people who had actually registered but were not allowed to vote. And this is in respect of the challenges that were faced on election day, where people were registered. And I think I also raised it at the PC, where an individual, got to the polling station and the presiding officer confirmed they indeed registered them, but they were not reflecting and they were not allowed to vote. But holistically, I think the challenges that we faced across the country about that. And then to separate the one about some people in the same household were voting at different voting stations. I think there, what was raised was the fact that many years ago, when there was a door-to-door registration, that the machine just registered people and allocated them to a VD, but in fact, the voting district may differ. And so we need to correct and clean that up, because there are people within the same household that are now, it's reflecting that they voted two separate voting stations. And the challenge there was about the special votes, because one registers for a special vote and then gets declined because the system is saying that you are not registered in that particular voting district. And that then disadvantaged our special voters. The other thing that's missing, just glaring at this, is the special votes that were registered, that were accepted, that were approved, but were not, the home visits were not conducted. And that, takes us back to not having a free and fair election if one was not allowed to vote based on the infirmities and challenges that they have physically, and that one was not permitted to vote because the IEC actually, in fact, did not visit them while they were actually registered. And then the part about, I think it's the last one, where it talks about voter turnout. I think what we need to do is to note the lower voter turnout, and then look at, to word it differently, because to say the IEC needs to increase measures together with stakeholders, I mean, it's very loose end. And the thing is that it's not something that just exists now. It's a trend that has developed over the years, where we see a lower and lower voter turnout. But also remember that we may have had a unique situation in that we had COVID plus lower voter turnout. So I'm saying what we need to do is note the lower voter turnout, and to look at how the IEC addresses and find mechanisms that are more appealing to address the continuing decline. I think that's how we should word it. And then the one about incorrect ballot papers, I think that was also noted. So it shouldn't be all clustered into one, because it actually takes away the relevance of that indeed there were voting stations that had the incorrect ballot paper for ward candidates, and that's a challenge. Apart from that, Chair, I just think that the IEC part of this report needs to really be cleaned up before we approve that. Yeah, thanks.
Let me, I did not want to interrupt you, Honorable Pillay, and I think Honorable Kanyile did attempted to raise it. We're not dealing with a report of the local government elections. And I think we must be alert to that space.
Sure.
We're dealing here with the annual report that was presented to the committee and considered. And if we venture into the report observations that we want to input on the BRRR without the detailed report from the IEC, it may not assist the committee, though there are issues that were raised. For example, the device find expression in the annual report in terms of the issues that they've raised. And we did set in the both in the opening and the closing, and yourself as members of the committee, that though we're dealing with the annual report, but there are issues that we need to tap in terms of the local government election. But we had emphatically that the report of the consolidated comprehensive report that will stand before the committee and be presented in Parliament has not been presented to the committee. So I wanted to assist the meeting to, and Adams, you may perhaps assist us that we not need to populate the entire brief on your report on the issues that are related to local government elections when there are issues that were presented in the annual report. So I wanted to guide that these issues that the Honorable Pillay is raising, you can note them so that when the report has been presented by the IEC, we are able to interface with it because you may find there'll be better clarity in terms of some of the issues that are raised. But in the absence of the report, we were unable to process this observation that all of us who have experienced, we've made. And I'm not saying that they're not related in terms of the work that we're doing as a BRRR. Is that clear? Sorry, Honorable Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir. As far as I understand what you're saying, these issues related directly to the local government elections, there's 3 of them, should be removed, and we'll put it on our outstanding issues to address list rather than in this report.
Yeah, let's wait for that report. Some of the issues that need details and that we don't have as a committee, we've made observation. We'll need the IEC to come and brief a comprehensive, as members have suggested. Honorable Mudisemza.
Thanks, Chairperson. I think issues were lifted sufficiently from this report particularly, so I'm covered. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Mr. Adams, what is your take on the presentation that was done by BMA? Will it find expression so that members are?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, Chair. I can indicate. I can show you we can go through that submission again.
No, it's fine. I wanted to get a sense that will be fine expression on the report.
Yes, Chair. I've captured all the issues raised by members so far.
Okay. I'm saying the BMA brief today.
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
It's also reflected in this report because we instructed them to report to us, and they have. But I've said that they must report to us again specifically about staff and budget.
Okay. All right. No, thanks, members. I think with those amendments that have been made, Adams, you'll work on the report and where there's thanks members for grounding this report in our main core and your contribution to this meeting. Can I invite members to consider the report for adoption with amendment made?
Chair, I move for the adoption of the report with the amendments.
Honorable Mutise Mta has moved for the adoption of the report. Seconder, Honorable Ross. I see your hand. Okay, any seconder? Sorry, maybe.
Chairperson, I'll second that.
Honorable Pillay, seconder to the report. Is there contrary review? 3, 2, 1. No, thanks, members. The report with amendment has been considered. Adams, you will just run out on some of the issues, and then you interact with ourselves for a final draft. Then we'll and thanks very much for the contributions members made and the recommendations we've made as a collective to assist the department. Is there any other matter, Mr. Matonsi?
No, Chairperson, there's no other matter.
Okay. The one matter that Mr. Adams and Hlongwane will send to members, which we have worked on it, is a tracking tool, which we have resolved on it to assist the committee on the decision that we have taken, implementation phases. And I think in addition to the presentation we've received today, Mr. Adams, that we must empower our tracking tool so that the committee is on track on the issues that are not responded. And I want to request you, Mr. Matonsi, where there's timelines that went beyond, you need to communicate with the various institution, IC, or Government Printing Works, or Home Affairs, so that we're checking on the issues that they've been dealing with. The last point is that we have interfaced with the Minister of Home Affairs. We have now written a correspondence to Minister on the issue of the Constitutional Court judgment, electoral reform, and the time is not on our side. And we've resolved that we've requested Mr. Matonsi to do that communique, and the Minister did confirm that the process is now going to Cabinet on the 24th, which is tomorrow, and we're scheduling it in the next 2 weeks for a brief. There's a letter that was written to the lead of government business by the Speaker to check on the development around that matter. But we're confident that the Minister will come back to the committee and brief the committee. We must able to meet the prescribed period of the Constitutional Court, or will be guided once the report has been presented. Those are the two issues which we are highlighting. The last one, Mr. Matonsi, our members are raising issues with the services. There are various issues which we are receiving from our members in relation to the speedy response of assistance from our people. And I think we need to follow up on that matter. I know there's a matter of Honorable Kanyisha has raised. We've tried to interface the department. They have not given a response as of now, but I will give details to yourself. Honorable Mtsamudise, she has also raised some of the issues that are related to the department. And we think that part of the tracking tool must assist us to resolve the issues for the community and our people. I think without any matter, Adams, I see you're panicking. What is an issue before I close? I adjourn the meeting.
No, I'm good, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you, members, for your contribution, and the meeting stand adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye, Chair.
Oh. Co-chair. How are you?
I don't know, how are you?
Good, good.
See you next week.
Oh, next week. Yes. What's happening next week?
Well, I hope you're going to come to the house.
Okay. No, thanks, Coach. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Adam?
Yes, Eddie.
If you can remain.
Sure. You're wearing a jacket today, Eddie. Did you get into trouble before?
And then
T-shirts all the time.
And the tie too.
No, there's no tie, Moses. You can't see properly.
Hey, I can see the pink one there.
Okay, Eddie, there's still a lot of people in here. Should we rather just meet, we'll talk on WhatsApp? Eddie?
Adam?
Yes, Eddie.
I'm still here. There's people still in the meeting. Let me.
That's fine. Let's just talk on WhatsApp, Eddie. It's fine.
Let me remove them.
Okay.
Or maybe let me call you on WhatsApp.
Yes, Eddie. Sure.
All right, sure.
Record.